Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, and so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show. Booyah!
Well, none of us hit the Powerball, so we're all here today. I don't think any of us hit it.
I'd be here anyway.
I would too.
Don't you find it?
I would out of spite.
For one more day.
Out of spite. Yep.
I was looking.
I wouldn't have
I
pants
was going to
on.
say one more week, but I'll give my 2 weeks.
I'd be naked from the waist down. I just feel like this. I'd be like, guess who won the Powerball?
Winnie the Pooh
What's
over
up?
And they'd be like, you're fired. And I'm like,
Here's
I'm
my
sticking
promise to you
around.
guys, okay? I buy tickets when it gets to like 500 million.
Right.
Makes no sense to me, but go on.
I know, because my chances of winning the big number still goes down because more people play.
But my question is 200 million just not enough for
No,
you?
not
Honestly,
really.
It's like, what would I do with that kind of money?
Here's why. It doesn't penetrate my psyche enough to make sure that I make it part of my
You
day.
gotta have like SpaceX.
The bigger
Right.
it gets, the bigger the story
But
gets.
I'm going to go on record right now.
Yeah.
If I get the Powerball,
Yeah.
Mikey, everybody on the staff
Yeah.
gets $2 million.
No.
Everybody.
That's too generous.
No, it's not.
All right, I'll take it.
I told
Yeah,
Betsy
let's go,
and
Jay.
Carmen and Christy, my co-workers upstairs, that they each get $5 million.
You're going to run out of millions.
Wait,
here.
I won't.
why the hell do they get more upstairs
Well,
than we get down here?
I've worked with them longer.
They've been on the camp longer.
Yeah, but they're in
dog.
TV longer, which means they have more money than we do.
Hey,
I guarantee I paid more graphics for you, Jay, than those people have combined.
I'm giving you $2 million, bro.
Hey,
I'll take it. You know what?
Earl
Let's
is
not
on-
get greedy. I'll be happy with $2
Right.
million.
I mean, suddenly two became
I don't
not
need
enough.
another penny.
all the brothers say, y'all do too much. White people be doing. Let that man give us $2 million.
Yeah,
what
what do you-
5?
I know, right?
I
this-
take
Can we negotiate
100,000.
here?
Is this pre-tax? That's my question. Is this
I
pre-tax?
will make sure that you roll with $2 million. So when
Okay.
it's all said and done, I'll pay your tax.
Now, now would your children have to work anymore?
No.
Oh, you retired them?
I mean, I would hope they would decide to work.
Right.
I would hope they. I'm blessed enough that the message that my father drilled into me, I drilled into my kids. Do something you love. You'll never work.
Right.
Yeah,
you'll have
yeah,
a
okay.
job, but you'll never work. We don't work.
No.
We really
fun,
don't.
though.
We are among the blessed.
Yes.
I said to my wife, especially since we've been doing this, I'm like, I just feel like it's another thing I do in my day. I don't even feel like I work anymore.
A fun thing that you do that we get a lot of enjoyment out
Not
of.
that
this.
it's easy. Not anybody could do this. So let's
Right.
not poo-poo what we do.
Sure.
But we have so much fun. All we do is laugh for 2 hours.
That's
for the
it.
most part. Well, we fight occasionally, and we mostly laugh. And so it's just a part of my day that I enjoy.
I
that
left
you
out the
recognize
lead.
that. Go ahead.
I'm going to give the show an operating budget of $3 million a year.
There you go.
Nice.
Until I
Let's
die.
go, yes.
Until I die.
Yep.
So I'll build that in that every single year there's
Yes.
a $3 million check that
I
goes
love
to
it.
this show.
I always need to get you
to
to
make
win.
sure that we can go on remotes like when the Browns make the Super Bowl, the show's
Yes,
going.
spring
Yes.
training.
Period.
But we will still be sponsored by PCC Airfoil.
Yeah, I would.
100%.
They're coming with us.
They're coming with us.
PCC is the old faithful.
That's right.
I don't know that there is a better business partner to have
I
than
can't imagine.
PCC.
Yep,
Damn right.
They've been with us through the thin times. They're going to be with us through the thick times,
That's
the fat
exact-
times. You're going to give them 10 grand too, just for the heck of it.
We love PCC.
Yep. We're going to paint the outside of your
my
Minerva
God.
building. We're going to
Yeah.
paint the outside of your Minerva building with our money.
Just like saying Minerva.
How many shows
Yeah.
give the advertisers jingles?
Right?
I don't think that's ever been done since like the
I heard-
50s when news anchors would
Not
smoke
really.
Chesterfield and
not
in the
happen.
middle of the show they would like roll a commercial in.
By the way,
not happen.
Chesterfield
Choose
cigarettes, if you want to sponsor us, Chesterfield cigarettes, we'll smoke through this entire show if you want. Be sitting here like
By
this.
the way, speaking of cigarettes, I know we're totally off track here, but whenever I see somebody buy cigarettes now, it's always shocking to me because I don't know anybody. There's nobody in my life personally that I know.
I'm with you.
Friend, coworker, anybody.
I'm with you.
We
That
run in
I know that
different
smokes.
Yeah.
Do you-
Hey.
we run in such different circles.
You know a lot of people that smoke.
I know a lot
Well,
of
you're
people.
in comedy clubs every
Yeah,
10
kind of stuff.
seconds.
Yeah. That's
So,
true. But
but I
They're
don't know
like
anybody.
$8 a pack.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So
I don't know how they afford to do it.
I'm in the 7-Eleven yesterday in Lakewood, and I don't even know what I bought. I can't remember, but I'm sitting there in the car, and this guy walks out with 2 packs of cigarettes. I'm like, man, people still buy cigarettes.
Yeah, it's still a
It's
thing.
always stunning
Some
to me.
people-
The
Well,
last person I knew that smoked cigarettes, Rest in peace, the great Michael. Not because of this. I'm not making a joke, but was Michael Stanley. He was a smoker.
Yeah, he did.
Did you know Michael well by then?
I'd met him and was always my first concert was Michael Stanley Band.
Wow.
Let me tell you
That's the most
something.
Cleveland thing I've heard all day.
And
I worked
I'm glad
with
that
Michael
I'm able to say that.
for years. He would come in at the radio station because he was right next to me for 7 years together. We would talk sports every day. We talked sometimes politics. We would talk television shows. He could not possibly have been a nicer guy.
That's good to hear.
And he was
I
kind
could
to
second that.
everybody he met.
For our Icelandic viewers, Michael Stanley was a recently deceased regional rock star here in Cleveland who sold out our largest music venue, Blossom Music Center, 3 nights in a row in like 1983 or something
Which
like
no
that.
one does.
Which is just an enormous place.
He was a man.
He was a huge deal around
Miss him
here,
every day.
And he recently passed. And
Him
he was
and
our
Les
local rock
Levine, who
star.
passed around the same time.
Les,
Miss
another
both
great
those guys.
Another great.
Great people.
Busy
Hey,
show
but,
today.
Jay, before we get in here, we
Yeah.
mentioned comedy clubs a second ago. I will watch Major Leagues by Thursday. We will do
Oh, great.
Thursday or Friday, we'll do a
Inexcusable.
Major League movie review. My
Right.
parents were here this past week, and I'm not going to tell you guys who their favorite panelist was prior to this visit.
Well, I hope not.
They did meet Mike Polk this weekend. Mike Polk is now their favorite.
Now their
We went to
favorite.
Mike
Well,
Polk's show on
how
Friday
could he
night.
not be?
Well, his dad met me
Yeah.
drunk, so that helped probably.
Were you drunk or is Dad drunk?
It was like a mixed bag,
Yeah.
I'd say. But no, he
All
was a
right.
lovely family. And Mikey McNuggets' dad is exactly what you would expect him to be.
Yeah.
Like, you can
Oh,
see where people come from when you meet their parents all the time.
Right.
That's funny.
Upbeat, utterly enthusiastic, and
Yeah.
very proud of his
You
son.
know, I've met your father. I haven't met Peggy.
Right.
Think.
I don't know if you have. No,
I
don't
have
think you
not.
Yeah.
But I will say that about your father.
Yeah.
I mean,
You get a dose of where we come from.
Yeah.
But then you meet the other person, you understand where the balance comes from. Like, I'm sure we're all combinations of our parents.
That's true.
And so I can
Yeah.
tell you, I can actually probably tell you everything about Mikey McNugget's mom just by meeting his dad. And I'm just like, you subtract the dad, and then I know what you are now. But your dad was a very nice guy. It was nice you guys to come and check it out, Mike. Thanks.
Very interesting. Busy show. State of the Browns. Who's the leader? Do
Yeah.
they have a leader? Can you anoint a leader? Are they born? These are questions that they're asking over in Berea right now. Jim Tressel, longtime coach of the Buckeyes, once a national champion coach of the Buckeyes,
Nice.
now the president of Youngstown State University. This is his last year. He's calling it a career after this. He's going to join the program. He's going to call in at 11:30. And Aditi is going to talk Browns, and I'm sure she's going to have some things to say about the Steelers because, you know, we do talk Steelers with her. She knows the Steelers well. Their team very much like Cleveland, trying to find themselves, trying to figure out what's going on over there. So let's dive in with our Browns talk. And yesterday, for a brief moment, I felt that the Browns were going to strike a deal with the Jets to send Kareem Hunt to New York because they, of course, lost their top running back for the season. Didn't happen. They instead gave a 6th-round pick. I think it's conditional. It could move up to a 5th round if he has 600 yards rushing for James Robinson.
Yeah.
So he's now a New York Jet. And I was a little disappointed at the price. I think Kareem Hunt is a better back.
Right.
I'm guessing that the Browns had conversations with the Jets, which is probably why they confirmed publicly that Kareem Hunt is on the trading block. When you're working a deal with New York, you're not going to keep it a secret. Someone in the media is going to find out. So they at least came out and said, "Oh, by the way, yeah, we are officially shopping Kareem Hunt." Should they do that deal? Should they move Kareem Hunt, or is it possible that he becomes a piece later this year for a playoff push?
You tell me, Garrett.
Start with me.
See, he's given up on the season.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking you're gonna sell him.
You know, well, before I tell you, I will say it's kind of demoralizing because I'm a person who I love pieces, I love parts, I love talent, and a lot of coaches say you can never have enough talent, but I'm starting to figure that out. Like throughout all sports, right? If you got a big 4 or a big 3, it's very difficult for coaches to get one of those guys involved. It's always going to turn into more like a 2 and a possible. That third wheel is not going to be what he was anywhere else. And that goes for basketball. And for football, you look at it right now, you got Dearness Johnson, you got Kareem Hunt, you got Nick Chubb. I would have never.
You got Jerome Ford.
You got Jerome Ford. You drafted a guy. So you got 4 running backs. The one running back you got is the best in the league. And people say he's not getting the ball enough. But with Kareem Hunt, it's like you would have thought he would have been a more vocal part of this offense more. And we saw the first game against the Panthers. We were like, hey, this is what we've been asking for. This is it. And then slowly but surely it dwindled down. I just think it's very difficult for people to get a lot of guys into into the swing of things. And so it's disappointing because, Kareem Hunt's a really good football player. But even at 2-5 at this point, I mean, you don't have very much draft capital. You don't have, your quarterback coming back within the next couple of weeks or whatever the case may be. And so you sit here and you say, I need to get better at some places because for me, I'm starting to look around and I'm starting to rethink how good I thought players were. Because I don't think Delpit and John Johnson are some sort of game breakers. They can be replaceable in the back end. You need defensive tackles. Your linebackers are looking like they're not very good. So now
You want other pieces or draft capital?
You need draft capital to get some other pieces. They need to do both.
So yeah, okay. So you're not saying get those other pieces in this year. You want picks.
Yeah, you got, and I'm not a picks guy, but I'm looking at this roster and there's holes, man. And we didn't think about it because we thought it was top 5. Not only is it not top 5, I came to this conclusion by just watching the Bears last night. And I watched what the Bears did. The Bears are a bad football team to the Patriots, and just how soundly the Patriots beat us. I said, man, we in a whole nother situation now. So, yes, long story short, Kareem Hunt, I would have loved to use him. But if you're not going to use him right, you might as well get the team better and get somebody else to know the pieces and parts, man.
I would say, first of all, on the Bears thing real quick, everybody's bringing up the Bears as an indication of how bad the Browns are, and there's no debating the Browns have been bad. However, oddly enough, Bill Belichick defenses have struggled against running quarterbacks, even guys that aren't great.
That's true.
And I was reading, somebody sent me this thing that said the reason his teams have often struggled with running quarterbacks is because his defense, he builds his defense not on athletic ability, but on cerebral, really smart players that are always in the right place in the right time. So if you have a quarterback where the play breaks down and he just runs, that his players on defense are not athletic enough to deal with that sometimes, and that's been an issue. Nick Saban has had the same problem at times with athletic quarterbacks. In terms of Kareem Hunt, Jay, to me, ideally, I would like to keep him for one more week because I think if you beat the Bengals, and again, on paper, and the way they're playing right now, the Bengals should win. However, the Browns, for whatever reason, have played
the Patriots beat the Bears last night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
On grass, it was a
So it doesn't matter.
whitewash.
And the Bengals are only a 3-point favorite. I know the game's in Cleveland, but it's not like they're a double-digit favorite. They're a 3-point favorite. And the Browns have played well, for whatever reason, against the Bengals over the last couple of years. Okay? So ideally, I would wait. If they lose to the Bengals Monday, I'd ship his ass for whatever I can get on Tuesday because the deadline's Tuesday or Monday night. However, if I got blown away with an offer this week.
When is the deadline?
I believe it's next Tuesday.
November 1st, right?
Yeah, but my question there is it midnight?
No, I
October
think it's like 4 p.m.
Because that would be a problem.
ESPN special on the deadline starts at 3 o'clock.
Right.
So it has
On
to be-
November 1st.
On
that
so
Tuesday.
It's probably close of business then on the 1st.
It's close of business
Right.
on Tuesday.
Okay.
Correct.
So there is time on Tuesday, and but so I would wait. But if they got an offer anything close to what the Niners got from McCaffrey, what the Panthers got from McCaffrey,
Yeah, that was a haul.
I would do it. Now, do I think they're going to get as much? No. McCaffrey's better than Hunt. I don't think there's a huge gap personally.
I don't either.
And they have the same skill set. However, the Panthers had the advantage of McCaffrey wasn't going to be a free agent.
Right.
Whereas Hunt is.
They had control over him, and now San Francisco does.
Exactly. Now,
That's a big difference. You're renting a player for the back half of the season, and that's it. And I don't think they're going to get much more than a third or fourth.
Right, but you got to get more than you got. I'm not trading for a 6th-round pick.
No.
What's the point of doing
No,
that?
keep them.
So if I could get maybe a 3 and a 4,
Wow.
I don't know that I can get that much.
No, that'd be great if you could.
But if I can, then I would do it because the bottom line is they're not using Kareem Hunt.
No.
They're not using him, and if we're only going to use him 8 plays a game, well, Dearness Johnson can do that for 8 plays a game.
Yeah.
So what's the point? Now, I would, as we all would, like to have seen Kareem Hunt play a lot more this year, but that's not happening. So if we're not going to use him and I can get a good trade, I would do it.
Mike, what do you think?
First of all, I think we should say that the experiment was worth it as far as he wanted out in the offseason. If you'll recall, he wanted to trade. He mentioned that. And we said, no, you're going to stick around. His value would have been higher then. We might have gotten something for him. But we still had hope at that point. And I remember you talking about this earlier in the season, Bill. This is still not a wasted season, even if we end up bombing out until Deshaun gets back here, because we hopefully have our long-term solution at quarterback in this season. really was a way of saying, you know what, maybe it'll work out. Maybe somehow we can get lucky. We got some easy early games, and we can stay in shape long enough to be in the playoff hunt when we get back. Well, that didn't work out.
No.
And now we have to look at the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that we are playing for next year right now. We have to. Our main focus should be, unfortunately, I'm sorry, everyone, but it should be to try and be as good of a team and be as prepared next year as we can possibly be, and do everything we can to try and make next year's team better at the sacrifice of this year, if that's what it takes.
So you'll move him soon?
I would move. Yes, I would move him if the offer is right. Again, I wouldn't do it for a 6th-round pick. It's not worth it. But if somebody comes at you with a good offer right now, what's he going to? Even if he is able to get us that one extra, win or something like that this year, it doesn't do us all that much good. And I think that the long-term move is to try and do whatever we can to set ourselves up for next year as best as possible. And what's also something to consider that makes this even a little bit trickier as far as having to watch this team for the rest of the year without Kareem Hunt is that looks like we're probably also going to be without David Njoku for at least a few games.
Yeah.
Kareem Hunt can act as that hybrid, almost tight end fullback. He can play, pass catching.
Could have used him that way.
Yes,
yeah.
we could have used him that way. It's not like we have or anything like that. But it stinks seeing that happen too with that kind of an injury where he could be more helpful. The other thing that obviously stinks is that no matter how bad we are this year from here on out, doesn't do us any good because we don't have our 1st-round pick this year, so it's not exactly like we're tanking for the heck of it. So we're in this horrible, weird position where we do want to win, we want to maintain hope, but we mostly have to be concentrating on where we're at next year. So they would be completely negligent if they were given an offer this year to try and just keep Kareem Hunt around for the rest of what is, at this point, going to end up being just essentially a training camp for next season, as far as I'm concerned.
This is a tough one. It really is. I was of the mindset that if you're going to move them before the season. Mm-hmm. And the reason I said that is because we've never used him properly.
No.
To me, he's Duke Johnson 2.0. I thought Duke was wildly talented. There was a game that we played the Jets a number of years ago. He had a drop pass that went for like 75 yards. It was clear he was the only football player on the team. And I just thought, why isn't he getting the ball 15, 20 times a game? Mm-hmm. And I know he wasn't, your big prototypical Nick Chubb type.
He's
back.
not as good as Kareem Hunt, but he had a similar skill set.
Exactly.
He had that kind of skill set.
I think there's 2 Kareem Hunts. There's Kansas City Kareem, who was an MVP caliber player. Mm-hmm. And then there's Cleveland Kareem, who is an underutilized player that the team has forgotten is on the roster. 6 touches in a game last week that I said going into it, you got to treat like a playoff game. This keeps your season alive if you win. Mm-hmm. So it's really difficult because now the price for Kareem Hunt is likely going to be one or the other, probably a 3rd or a 4th. I doubt very seriously they'll get 2, considering what the take was for Robinson. And here's why. You're halfway through the season.
Yeah.
Here's the other problem. The team that's going to trade for him is a contender, right?
Yeah.
So they're likely going to pick later in the draft. So even if it is a 3rd, but it's late in the 3rd, it almost feels like a 4th. If it's a 4th and it's late in the 4th because the team makes a playoff run,
right? Sure.
Then and here's my biggest fear. Here's what I believe this is going to happen. He's going to go to the Colts, or he's going to go to the Vikings, or he's going to go to not the Packers.
Well, but
they don't need him.
The Bills. The Bills. What if he goes there?
Oh my gosh, I can't believe the Bills haven't picked up the phone and said, "What's the price?"
Yeah.
I really can't.
Can you imagine him in that offense?
Here's the thing. They've got the top-ranked offense already. I mean, for them, it would just be this. This is the piece we need to win the Super Bowl. But wherever he goes, here's what our reality is going to be. We'll watch him in January tap dance on NFL defenses, and we're going to say, "We had that guy, and he was getting 6 touches a game." What?
Yeah.
I mean,
Guys, I see 3 teams
like
where he makes a lot of
situation.
sense. I see 3 teams where he makes a lot of sense: the Bills, the Rams, and the Cardinals. None of those teams. Those teams all have pedestrian running backs.
You know what, Bull? The team that I said you kept saying, well, who's going to trade for him? Who's going to trade for him?
Right.
When we were having this discussion
I remember.
Before the season, and I said, trade him.
Yeah.
I said the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they don't have a running back. And when you look at what's happened to Tampa Bay, Leonard Fournette is not Leonard Fournette. Mm-hmm. And when you watch Tampa Bay, what you realize is Tom Brady is stoppable in the way that Nick Chubb is stoppable if you know that he's going to be the horse. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't stoppable early in his career, but he's later. It's in the twilight of his career. And He's had some availability issues with his receivers. He's got great receivers. I think if you put Kareem Hunt in the Buccaneers offense, all of a sudden Tom Brady would look like Tom Brady again, and I believe the Buccaneers could still make the play. They're in a bad division.
Yeah,
I think they could win the division.
I mean,
really
Fournette
do.
hasn't been that bad this year.
He hasn't been Leonard Fournette. He hasn't been playoff
he hasn't been
Lenny.
great, but maybe we were talking about trading a top receiver for him, which I was saying team weren't going to do. Not that teams wouldn't be interested in him at all.
Right. Well, no,
At the time, our debate was
our debate was, you said, who's going to trade for Kareem Hunt? Who's going to trade him?
No. I said, who's going to give up a number one receiver
And
for him?
my answer was,
right.
The Buccaneers have receivers.
Right, but I don't think they would have given up those guys. But
I don't know. For
we'll
a
never
Kareem
know.
Hunt, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, and I made the mistake of drafting Evans and Godwin in my fantasy league. Like, I knew what I was doing at the time. I talked myself into Brady was going to throw for 5,000 yards, and that those have to go somewhere, so I took both. I think that they almost had, like, one of those guys would do with a top flight running back.
But they seem to be a real big mess right now.
They are a mess.
Can I ask
They're
y'all
like us.
Can I ask y'all a question?
Please.
Man, it's tough for me to talk about the Browns in the last week or so. I just don't have.
Yeah,
motivation.
you've been off.
You have a terrible job right now.
It's funny that you say that, G. Sorry to cut you off, but I just want to respond to what you said. Because when I recorded my podcast this morning, I was planning on talking about the Browns and the Cavs.
Right.
I was planning on talking mostly about the Browns and then doing a little Cavs at the end. And I was planning on starting with the Browns. And as I started the podcast, I literally said, I was going to start with the Browns, but they're so depressing. I'm going to talk about the Cavs for a while.
Well, you're
and I
right.
ended up talking about the Cavs for like 18 minutes.
That loss just it took half my soul, bro. I'm like, dog. Can you explain to some of the fans, right?
Yeah.
So if you got Kareem Hunt and the fans are sitting there looking at it, knowing that what he's capable of, but then the organization is telling you, well, it's not that he's not good. We're just not doing anything. We don't want to.
They're telling us he's not good by how much they use him.
How can you sell that to a fan?
To me, the only thing that makes sense, and I don't think this is the case, maybe it'll be proven out down the line, is, it's like I just assume that the Kansas City Kareem Hunt is still there. Because outside of this year, when they have used him, he hasn't been as effective this year, but he hasn't had many chances, especially the last couple of weeks. But like every other year that he's been here, when he's been used, he's been highly effective. So I assume that Kansas City Hunt is there. I wonder if they think he's not that same kind of player anymore. It's the only thing I can think of as to why you would use
lost
him.
in the play sheet. I do. I think what happens with the Browns and their play calling is they come into the game with the best intentions. They prove it on the first drive every week. They give it to Chubb. They give it to Chubb. They move the ball. They score the touchdown. Then they do the play fake deep throw, and all of a sudden, Stefanski's like, whoa, maybe we got something in the back end of this secondary. Let's try chipping away at that. And then he's lost. And then where's Chubb? Where's Hunt? They disappear for quarters at a time.
Interesting real question. Do you think the seemingly incompetence of the Browns coaching staff and their inability to utilize Kareem Hunt actually helps his trade value? Because other teams say he might really be good, but the Browns are so stupid that they don't. If we use them properly, so does our incompetence help his trade value?
I think so.
I don't think that the Browns are incompetent. I think they've made a mistake here. I think incompetence is a little strong, in my opinion.
Well, as it pertains to the use of the running backs.
I think they've used him poorly, and I think there are clearly, I agree with Jay and what you just said, there are teams that he's going to be their primary back. If he went to even Tampa Bay, I mean, Fournette's been fine, but Hunt's better. Certainly in Buffalo, certainly in Arizona, certainly in the Rams, he's their best back. And they have creative offensive play call. I don't know about Arizona in terms of creative, but certainly the Rams and the Chiefs and the Bills have very good play. Even the Chiefs, he can go back there too.
He could, but I mean, I think that Solaire's been fine. I mean, I don't think he's the problem, right? Edwards-Helaire?
They just benched him this past.
Maybe they.
No, they benched him for Pacheco, but Pacheco only played 8 plays.
I know.
Maybe you know what?
They don't love Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He hasn't been great there.
Maybe that is the play. I don't know, but Bull, here's the one caveat that I throw out there about trading him.
Yeah.
I always look at what Vegas is saying and doing, always, because they're right. They're building, marble castles with our money because we're wrong, and they're right. And the fact that they have the Browns only a 3-point dog If you, and you can't erase the history, but if you just take the history away from the Browns and the Bengals and the fact that they've really struggled against the Browns the last couple of years, the fact that they're only a 3-point dog, what I've seen with my eyes, just last 2 weeks, Bengals this way, Browns this way.
Yeah.
I would say 7 points, maybe 9. So
at home.
I know, but Bull, I'm just talking about my eye test and what I'm seeing, how one team is completely a mess and the other team is figuring it out. But Vegas is smarter than us.
So you think Vegas thinks that the Browns are better than we do?
No, they think something is funny about this weekend's game because, again, I know in the standings it's only 2 games, but just the eye test. I watched Cincinnati and their deep game is back.
Yes.
It's back.
Yeah.
And where are we a mess?
Well,
the back end of our defense. I would think if I'm just picking and forget, I'm not going to bet this. I'm going to say Cincinnati's a double-digit favorite in my mind.
I wouldn't think so.
But they're saying not so fast.
I would think more than 3, not double-digit because it's at home. But the interesting thing too is if you look at the Bengals are like the best fourth-quarter team in football, and the Browns are the worst fourth-quarter team in football. You know the Bengals defense. I didn't even realize this, and I've watched them play every week. They haven't given up a touchdown in the second half of any game this year.
Wow.
I don't know how that's possible.
That's
I
insane.
almost feel like I read the wrong stat.
You know why? I think that's possible because what we've learned is you can, and you said this yesterday,
Yeah.
you can script the first 15 plays and practice them all week and be really good at them. Mm-hmm. But that's not coaching. That's planning.
That's true.
Coaching is what you do when the door shuts at halftime.
Hey, that's a fair criticism.
What are we doing? How are we going to be better in the second half than we were in the first? Because they're making adjustments in the other side. Mm-hmm. And
yes,
I think I'm surprised that Stefanski hasn't been better at moving chess pieces late in the game.
Right.
Our fourth quarter defense is the worst in the NFL.
Yeah.
That's an indictment on the head coach. And that is a strong endorsement of Taylor. If they're making all the right moves at halftime, they're not giving up a touchdown in the fourth quarter. Did you say fourth quarter?
I believe it was the second half. I got to double check the stats.
If it's the
I
second
think it's
half,
the fourth quarter ball.
Okay,
was it just the fourth quarter?
That's
okay,
still impressive.
still crazy.
That's when you win and lose games.
Yeah.
And that's where the Browns have lost all their games this year, with the exception of the blowout.
And here's the thing: if you're Kevin Stefanski, you have to watch. You can't let this thing get out of control. Because if you spiral, and what I mean by spiral, here's the worst case scenario. When you go to business, when you go in anything, right, you have to think about what is your worst case scenario moving forward. Mm-hmm. Your worst case scenario is this. You trade Kareem Hunt. Mm-hmm. He goes to a contender. He's on TV every week because they are a contender, and he looks like the best running back in the league.
That will really be bad for Kevin Stefanski.
The second thing is Nick Chubb, because he does, like you pointed out, he got third most carries. He gets nicked up, he's out for the season.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Then you look at it, they play the games, now you go out of the bye, your defense goes down. Now you look at Myles Garrett, he's already playing with a shoulder and an elbow.
Oh, it could crater, yeah.
Yeah, and then the worst part is Deshaun Watson gets back, you think he's going to be like the miracle mirage, he's going to come out on a white pony and save the day, and then guess what? He looks like he hasn't played in 2 years. And you go 3 and something.
Okay, yeah. Listen, that's all bad. There's nothing you can do about it. That could happen, certainly. That is the worst case scenario. The only bright light is, as Mike said, and it's hard for Browns fans to accept this, and I don't blame them, is that you will, in theory, have Deshaun Watson for a full season next year. And Browns have been listening to wait till next year for forever. I get it. But the reality is that if Deshaun Watson is the quarterback that we think, that at least you and I think he's going to be, and I think most of us think he's going to be, whether he's that guy in week 12 this year, or it's not till next year, or it's in game 15, 16, 17 this year, if he's that guy, then he's going to make up for other shortcomings along the way.
But he doesn't play defense.
So let me
get it.
Let me
but
give you this.
As bad as their defense has been, we've all agreed that they're at least 4-2 at least 5-2 right now. If he was the quarterback, because the games have been close enough that even with the bad defense, he would have made a difference.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you want to be a champion, the only problem with that thought process is if you want to win a Super Bowl, right? That's where we want to go. We don't want to be competitive with Super Bowl. when you talk about some of the things that they're doing coaching-wise, those things travel. Just because he's giving you makeup, you can take NyQuil all you want if you got cancer. That ain't doing nothing. NyQuil just masks the fact that it puts you in the daze and you don't feel the pain. Everything is great. But when Deshaun Watson get here and you are a good team, those same faults are still with Kevin Stefanski. Those are built into what he does. So when you play a good team, when you play a great team, those things pop up. He's not going to, in the fourth quarter, in the AFC Championship game, you think he's not going to do some of this?
But great play makes everybody look great.
Yes.
Remember when Baker went on just like a clinic a couple of years ago and we were like, you know who should be the head coach right now? Freddie Kitchens.
Yep, talk that.
So what I'm saying is that Freddie, because of Baker's play, because of some really advantageous play, all of a sudden we considered Freddie Kitchens to be a head coaching candidate, not because he was worthy of it, but because a rising tide raises all boats.
I guess we'll find out when Watson's back, and certainly by next year, assuming Kevin Stefanski's still the head coach, whether some of us are right that Kevin Stefanski is at least a decent coach who needed a good quarterback. Or, wow, even with a good quarterback, he's still not getting it done.
Is he Mike Brown? Is he Mike Brown in basketball? Ty Lue got the championship.
It's a great reference.
Is this Mike Brown? Because you had LeBron, he carried you all the way, but when you got there, Mike Brown still said, "Hey, I'm a JV coach," and every time. Popovich, all those Riley, all those guys tap danced all around him.
Mike Brown would be like, in a huddle, he'd be like, guys, here's what I think we do. LeBron's like, get out of the huddle, get out of the huddle. He's like, all right, I'll go sit down over here. Tell me how it goes, guys. That was Mike Brown.
Yeah, that was Mike Brown. I don't know. I'm not sure. The one thing that I will say that you're going to get less for him if you trade him next week. You'll get even less, as the weeks go on. This is the last week after this week. It's the last week they could trade him.
Yeah.
The other thing that I want to find out, who is Jerome Ford. I want to find out about Dearness Johnson, because if you don't have Hunt, one of those two guys has to be Hunt. And if you're 2-6 and the season is over, then you can start to find out which of those two guys is the guy you want to keep moving forward. Yeah. And one other thing before we bring in Jim Tressel. It's beyond me. I'll never understand it. We've complained about it so much, we've actually stopped complaining about it because we've complained about it so often. If I'm going into a fight with 11 people and I can get 11 people on my side to go fight them, I'm going to find the best 11 that I can find, and I'm going to say, now we got a chance. Especially if I have Mike Tyson on my team. I can't just rely on Mike to swing and punch and knock everybody out, because Mike's going to get a lot of attention. So I'm going to go find an Evander Holyfield. I'm going to find somebody else, and he's going to be in my 11. And as Mike is drawing attention, Holyfield's just picking guys off.
Right.
Why Kevin Stefanski hasn't decided to put Nick Chubb and Evander Holyfield and Kareem Hunt and Mike Tyson on the same field at the same time, it will be my long-standing mystery around Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah.
Because
I don't understand it.
It's only one or the other. On a handful of plays this year, we've had both. And the plays have been successful.
They've gotten first downs.
Because the defense is like, we gotta pay attention to him, and we gotta pay attention to him.
I agree with that.
We do defenses a favor when we just put one of them on the field.
I agree with it. Although I'm thinking about it, like the other teams that have two good backs, right? Like Dallas has got Zeke and Pollard. The Broncos before Javonte Williams got hurt.
The Broncos, by the way. There are teams that have packages for both running backs at the same time, and you see them frequently. Green Bay is the team that comes to mind. I think they call it the pony. And they put both of their horses on the field.
Those guys haven't had a great year this year.
No, well,
they haven't, period.
Because Green Bay doesn't have any receivers.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, you had some fourth quarter stats, some second half stats. Was that Cincinnati hasn't given up a touchdown in the fourth quarter?
Cincinnati is averaging, allowing just 2.1 points per game. That's second best in the NFL
in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
In just the fourth quarter. The Cleveland Browns dead last in the NFL, allowing 10 points per game. So quite the difference there.
Wow. But it's a touchdown more.
Brown stuff right now doesn't matter because we have president of Youngstown State University, Jim Tressel.
Yes, we do. The great Jim Tressel. Jim, welcome to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. It's a thrill to have you on. Thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it. How's your day going?
It's wonderful. Thank you. It's sunny and 75 here in Youngstown.
Yeah, as they
know,
say, we
we're
shouldn't
lucky.
get used to it because, as we know, it's going to be 40 in a day or two.
I was sleeping with the air conditioning last night.
Yeah.
That's how
It's that kind of
beautiful it
weather.
was last night.
So, Coach, we'll get to the Ohio State stuff in a little bit, but first, this is your last go-round as the president of Youngstown State University. Have you given much thought yet to how you'll spend your time after this year is done? What will take up the bulk of your days?
Well, I've given a lot of thought to it, and it's like anything else, it's hard to sort out all of the various opportunities that, we may have. This is my 48th year in higher education, and both jobs have been 7 days a week. And so I'm probably not going to go 7 days a week. I can tell you that.
Good for you.
But, my wife always reminds me that I'm a workaholic, so it's not that I'm going to go 0 days a week. So, I really do want to have a chance to spend more time with family and friends and former players, former coaches. I was just up in South Bend the other day. I stopped by to see Marcus and James Laurinaitis and just being there for various guys. We have Luke over at Cincinnati and PJ up in Minnesota and Mel at Michigan State. And, my nephew's the defensive coordinator for Luke at Cincinnati. And so I don't get a chance to be around those guys as much as I would like. And Pat Narduzzi's right over here at Pitt, and I never get to see him. And so, having a chance to see those former coaches, former players, but also continue to be helpful for Youngstown State University, Northeast Ohio, with all of our economic development things we're working on. So I'm not going to be short on activities. I'm just going to have to sort it out.
Coach, my longtime radio partner, Dustin Fox, of course, was one of your first recruits at Ohio State. I texted him earlier to say you were coming on, and he is always, I didn't get to see the smile today because it was a text, but he always smiles when your name comes up. I'm curious, when you think of all the guys you coached, going back to Dustin, at Ohio State, but even before that, what do you miss, if anything, about being in the locker room?
Oh, well, that's what you miss the most is that intimacy of the staff room, working, night and day, throwing coffee cups at each other when you're disagreeing about the game, being in the locker room and being there for your kids. Kids are kids, they go through more things than just on the field. I know we only see them on the field, but, their lives are as complex as anyone else's. And so having those intimate conversations, helping them dream about their dreams and try to become the men that you want them to become. So obviously you miss all of that. And I think I'll have a little bit more time to do a little more individual coaching than I have a chance to now. And in fact, I just spent this morning from 7 a.m. to 9:15 a.m. with Ryan Shazier and Simon Arias, two of my guys. And,
wow.
And just talking about their businesses, talking about their lives. So I enjoy that more than anything. The games were fun and the rings are shiny and all that kind of thing, but really the relationships are what really it's all about. And hopefully I'll have a little bit more time to continue those relationships and just be helpful, see if I can add value to the lives of the people who certainly added a lot of value to my life.
Coach, when you got out of coaching, there's always that thing where football is inside you. You can't just avoid it. You watch it on TV, and obviously it's probably something that you still do a lot now. But can you give us a time when it was the closest you've ever thought about coming back to coach? You obviously never really did it, but was there any opportunities or any times when you thought for, maybe even a split second, hey, I might want to go back and get on the sidelines?
I suppose we all have those fleeting moments. My beloved Cleveland Browns, there was a time when I thought, wow, gee, I wonder if, that might be a fun thing or whatever. But, I'm not a very good spectator, and, watching games and listening to all the infinite wisdom of the people broadcasting the game sometimes, is a little bit much for me. So, I would either be all in or or really on the outside. And people ask me all the time, well, how are the Buckeyes and what about the Browns? And, how's your YSU team? And I've got 100 people in my president's suite at every home game. I don't have time to see 10 plays, nor do I ever like to comment on things, because if you're not at practice, I think that's where people misunderstand coaching more than anything. People say, well, why are we doing this? Well, probably because we learned something at practice, and even though Allen Iverson doesn't think practice is that important, practice is really important. And so knowing that I'm not at practice, everyone says, well, where does Marcus Freeman and the Irish need to get better? Well, I don't know. I mean, I've watched a couple of their ball games, not start to finish, but bits and pieces, but I've never been to a practice, and so I don't know. And so if you're going to be in coaching, you have to be all in, and I really haven't had that desire to be all in, other than way back. I think I could have been tempted by the Browns, but NFL was not something that I had a resume in, and so it probably didn't make sense anyway. But you have to decide that you're going to work 120, 130 hours a week. After having been at Ohio State, I just didn't feel as if there was another experience that would have been as fulfilling as that one.
Coach, if you could go back, you were a quarterbacks coach at Miami University in 1979, 1980. If you could go back and tell young coach you one piece of advice after all this time, I know you've learned a lot, but if you could sit yourself down and say one thing to you in that year, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
Oh boy, 1979 and 80. The hardest part about being at Miami was I had to leave, and I guess patience. I remember talking with my dad, who at the time was very ill, and saying, "Hey, Dad, I don't know. Syracuse wants me to come, and Coach McPherson is leaving the Browns and is taking the Syracuse job, but I really love it here at Miami and really gotten to know the players, and I think we can be good, and all those kinds of things." And I remember him saying, "Well, don't forget that the players are going to graduate too. You have to make good decisions for yourself," which I thought was good advice. But I think patience in coaching. Make sure that you're with the people that really can make a difference for you. I know Tom Reed, who we just lost. He just passed, our former Miami head coach. He was extraordinary, and Coach Dennison was my first boss as a head coach at Akron, and Coach McPherson. I'm so lucky that I got with people like them. Coach McPherson taught me more about building a program, because I went with him his first year at Syracuse, and just to see how methodically he built a program. Little did I know I would get a chance to do that twice, at YSU and then at Ohio State, and really build a program here as a president of a university. I learned more from Dick McPherson about building programs than anyone I was ever around. So I would give that young coach the advice of, make sure you get with the right people.
Wow.
Coach, we've had a lot of your former players on. We had Anthony Gonzalez on. Obviously, he's served in Congress or Capitol Hill. I've always thought this, and a lot of people say at one point in time in the state of Ohio, you probably could have ran for governor of the state, senator of the state. Have you ever seriously considered going into a political career?
That I can answer definitively, no. Your question on the coaching, I had to be honest that I'd had flickers of thought getting back in coaching, but in political office, no. Never a thought.
Isn't coaching a little bit political at times, particularly in a place like Ohio State?
I don't know that it would be political. Yes, you have to fundraise, which, politicians do a lot of fundraising. But, that's the beauty. I think that's why people like sports, is that, the debate isn't as vague. I mean, you either win or you lose. There's a scoreboard that's pretty simple. And, if you're running the country or running the state, the scoreboard is so complex. And, it's so hard to decide whether you did a good job or didn't do a good job because there's so much involved, and really in really respect for the political public servants, the breadth of what they have to keep in mind. And Anthony Gonzalez has told me this more than once, that there's really a lot of great things that go on in Washington, D.C. They don't always get covered that much. It's some of the spectacular stuff that is somewhat divisive that gets covered a lot. But a lot of the good, hard work on behalf of the people, he said, there's really a lot of good stuff going on. It's just such a complex organization that, you don't always see that. And I have to give respect to the people that are willing to, to serve the public.
Coach, speaking of your former players, Maurice Clarett is a frequent guest on our show. Unfortunately, we wanted to pop him in with you for a couple minutes, but he has something going on personally, as I'm sure you know. But
he does say hi, by the way, Coach.
Right,
he wanted to make sure I sent that message. He cannot be here, but he says what's up and hope all is well.
But the turnaround,
I'm proud of Maurice. He's done a great job.
Yeah, Coach, the turnaround in his life after being at the low of the low to where he is now, putting his life back in order. I just wanted your thoughts on where he is and what you think about it.
That's the reality in all of our lives, is there's going to be moments where it's going just as you'd hoped, and there's going to be moments where you can't believe where it went.
Yeah.
And the same thing in the course of a football game. There's going to be moments where it's going the way you hoped, and going to be moments where it's going the other direction. The key to people that are winners in football is they can handle the ups and downs. They don't get too high with the ups or too low with the downs. They have a plan. They know what they're doing. They have a belief. And I always say winners win. That's just what winners do. Well, it's the same thing in life. Maurice, just an extraordinary talent, made a huge impact on Ohio State football. One could argue that him coming to Ohio State at the beginning of this century might have been the single most important thing that turned the fortunes of Ohio State football where it is today. That if you look at the seasons from this century, the Buckeyes have always been in the conversation. And his coming to Ohio State and the difference he made might have arguably been as important as anything. And then, of course, he hit the hard times. He made some decisions. He'd be the first to tell you that he didn't surround himself maybe always with the right people. And but to his credit, he handled his consequences. He made a very difficult thing into something that would help him grow, and that when he got his new opportunities, he has run with them, and he's making a difference in a lot of communities. He's having an exceptional business career. His family, his daughter's a senior in high school, and he's got two little ones now. Life is good, and he's a hard-working guy.
He really is. He's driven. He's motivated. He's intelligent. And the one thing that stands out about Maurice is I remember the first time we had him on the show, and I'd had these conversations with him off air, but never in such a public manner. He came in our studio and sat in our studio for 2 hours, and Coach, he put his arms around everything. I mean, you talk about the low points, and a lot of people, I think, had they gone through those things, would be embarrassed to relive them. Not that he's proud of them, but he doesn't run from anything, and that's always what stood out to me about Maurice. If you spend any time talking about him, he talks more about those times than his times at Ohio State when he was helping, as you say, rebuild and put on the map again a once national power who had fallen off. What is it about his makeup, do you think, and perhaps other people, where they're not afraid of their past and their low moments, and they embrace them?
I think real winners, whether it's in life or in the game of football, do learn the most through their tough times. I think our 2002 team became national champions because they had some low times in 99, 2000, 2001, and they didn't back down from them. They learned the lessons from them, and they weren't going to be denied. Well, the same can be true for an individual. Maurice doesn't sugarcoat that. He had some tough times. He had some moments that he had to make some decisions as to was he going to learn from what he knows, that wasn't the direction to go. And, you mentioned there at the outset of discussing Maurice's, his intelligence. He's always been intelligent. His drive, he's always had drive, but he had to decide where he was going to apply his intelligence and drive. And so he decided, you know what, I want to do it in the proper fashion. And, again, I couldn't be more proud of him, but most of my teams learned their best lessons from their toughest losses. It's just the way it was. Most of my best players learned their greatest lessons from the times when they didn't do it well. And they learned the lesson as to what do I have to do this better and become the best I can be. And so I think the human being in general needs to struggle. I think it's a need.
Yeah.
The human being has to decide they're going to handle the struggle. Some people don't handle the struggle. The winner handles the tough times, and Maurice Clarett is a winner.
Yeah, it's
Coach,
poetic.
obviously the Glenville football program is an important part of the Cleveland community. Ted Ginn Sr. has done such a great job there. Ted Ginn Jr. obviously played at Ohio State, and a lot of Glenville players have played at Ohio State. Can you talk about what that relationship was like between Glenville and just Cleveland in general as well, and the Buckeyes?
Well, I've known Ted Sr. for, 40 years maybe 38 years, whatever. And, I've always admired the fact that all he wants to do is make a difference in kids' lives. And he wants to make a difference in kids' lives who maybe haven't had as much support as some of us have had. And he spends night and day. All he cares about is helping his kids have a chance to make it, to realize their goals and so forth. And what he's done with that program since taking over at Glenville, and then now his Ginn Academy, and the numbers of kids that he has sent on to have opportunities, and he's miraculous in my mind. There's not many people who have had the kind of impact in not the easiest situation. It's been amazing, the pride that it's brought to our Northeast Ohio area, the pride that it brought to the Buckeyes, to have so many of those kids. There was a time when we did a total compilation of how many yards, touchdowns, interceptions, wins. We did this whole Glenville thing, and I wish I could put my hand on it, because it was thousands of yards and points and victories, and that the Tarblooders were a part of at Ohio State that, I would probably guess no other single high school has had their hand in as much production at Ohio State as Glenville.
Coach, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. I was born in Warren. I went to Warren JFK. I'm familiar with the area. One thing I miss most is the food in that area. Can you give a shout out to a couple of the amazing Youngstown, greater Youngstown area restaurants? Where do you give me a couple of good restaurants that you enjoy there in Youngstown?
Well, if you're up in Warren, of course, Leo's and Vernon's and, those types. I like the Chop House over there at the Avalon Resort. Trying to think here up in that area. Alberini's used to be.
Heck yeah.
Richard Alberini's and Jimmy Sheffo's and Cafe 422, and all those used to be the ones where not all of them are still rolling now. And then down here in Youngstown, you have Aquapazzo and you have Prima Cucina, and of course, right, our campus restaurant right behind the campus, the MVR, which is the Mahoning Valley restaurant, and the Golden Dawn. The Golden Dawn is the Ursuline Irish restaurant right near their school, and the MVR is the Cardinal Mooney hangout, and right on the YSU campus. But one thing we're not short on here is food.
Yep.
It's.
I missed it all. I just wanted to hear that list again. Thank you very much, Coach. Appreciate it.
Mike's hungry now.
Columbus for 13 years, 3 years as an assistant and 10 as a head coach. And there's hundreds and hundreds of restaurants there. But, I'm not sure that from traditional, especially Italian food, that per capita restaurants, the Youngstown Warren area is pretty tough.
What
to
happened
beat.
was we always used to be mobbed out there, but then sort of the mob got busted to a degree, and then everybody just had to learn how to cook. So we're like, now, well, we can still cook, and now that there's a cuisine, an Italian cuisine-based economy, and I love it. Anyways, I miss it. My best to Alberini's.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been here since 1986. I took a 14-year hiatus away from here, but everyone brings up the mob and all that kind of thing, and in my 36 years around here, I wouldn't, if I bumped into someone that was a part of the mob, I didn't know it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's folklore or what it is, but I keep hearing that, but have never seen it.
Glorified yesteryear.
Hey, Coach, before we let you go, I think we have to get your thoughts on NIL.
Yeah.
And I know that's a broad topic, and I know that you probably have some pretty strong thoughts on that. Is the game better today because of that? Where is the future of the NIL? What are your general thoughts about it?
Yeah, I think it's so early in the discussion. I think that, we kind of did it to ourselves in that as revenue began skyrocketing in intercollegiate athletics, for whatever reason, we chose not to have the student athletes take part in the spoils, and then all of a sudden, when it got so out of hand and started getting so much attention that it kind of exploded. And I think the NCAA is in the midst of this whole transformation discussion and all of those types of things. I think there'll be a lot take shape here in the next year or two. I don't know what it'll be. You have to be a little bit careful. Some people are saying, well, maybe we need federal intervention. And, I'm not sure how well federal's worked out for us right now. But, so I don't know. I will say this. I wish 50 years ago, 40 years ago, as the revenue started growing, that we would have put some really smart people in the room and figured out a way to anticipate how the student athlete could have been more a part of that. Whether it would have been annuities or things put back or just different things so that we didn't get to this moment, but we're at this moment, and it's a little bit of the wild, wild west. I'm not sure all the different impact it's going to have because the major schools are going to be raising lots of money, which, will that impact their ability of their university to raise money for the general university? I don't know. Will it impact your ability to raise funds for the athletic department that you normally used to have to raise? But they'll say, well, no, I'm investing in the NIL. So I think it's a little bit too early. I think a lot of people are working hard to try to figure it out. Nothing would surprise me in terms of the future, all the way from the NCAA figuring it out to the NCAA disappearing. I don't know. I mean, you could go a lot of different directions, but I think people, to their credit, are working extremely hard, vetting it, talking about it, trying to figure out how we can do things fairly, properly, have the right kind of restrictions, but I'd say stay tuned. The NIL discussion is not over.
Yeah, that's for sure. Before we let you go, our producer, Mikey McNuggets, has a question for you. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Coach, thanks for joining the show. I was unfamiliar with the Youngstown State mascot till I saw your quarter zip. That penguin's awesome. My question, though, is you meet a lot of people in what you do, and you've met a lot of people throughout your years. I'm going to pull up a picture in a sec. I'm curious. Did you know who you were taking a picture with here, or was this just some random guy who asked you for a picture? Let's take the tag board here. Do you know this man?
Oh, yeah, that's Tyvus from Bedford.
You just made Tyvus's life, Coach.
What's that?
You just made his life. Tyvus is part of the show, and he sent us this picture. And
Yeah,
he,
you know
big
what?
fan
I
of yours.
had seen Tyvus when that night I saw him. That was at the 100-year birthday of Ohio Stadium, and I hadn't seen Tyvus since I think maybe spring of 2011. So that was 11 years or so. And when he came up, I thought, man, that handsome young man. I feel like I know him. And then when he reached his hand out, I thought, man, he was one of the last guys I recruited at Ohio State, and I'm so proud of him. And he's looking good and doing good.
Wow, from Dustin Fox to Tyvus Powell.
Yeah.
And everybody in between.
We're never going to hear the end of that, Coach.
Let me give you a Dustin Fox story, because
Yes.
anytime people bring up Dustin Fox, the first thing that flashes in my mind, as you say, he was, I think, the first guy I called after I became the head coach at Ohio State, or at least one of the first. And I remember my daughter's high school team was Boardman High School, and they were playing against Canton Glen Oak in the basketball season at the time. It was in January. And it was a league game, and we had Terrence Dials at Boardman, who ended up playing at Ohio State. And Dustin, of course, was playing for Glen Oak. And so I told my daughter, I said, hey, tell me how that Fox kid looks, because, he's going to have to face up against Terrence Dials and so forth. And I'd say about 7:15, after the game started, my phone rang, and it was my daughter. And she said, you're not going to believe this, but Dustin Fox just dunked on Terrence Dials. Ooh, we got to get this guy if he can dunk. Because Dustin could jump about 42 inches.
Yeah.
He was extraordinary.
He was an incredible athlete, and had you not gone to Ohio State, Dustin probably would have ended up at Penn State.
Well, that's where Derek ended up.
Yep.
And had a good career. And
Yep.
and I don't know. I think Dustin would have had a hard time not going to Ohio State.
It was
But,
close. It was close.
I'll take credit for that. As a president, I don't get credit for much lately, so that's a good thing.
Thanks, Coach.
You know what? Anybody that followed Ohio State football while you were there, they know what time it was, and they know that you were instrumental in turning that thing around and putting it in a place where it could succeed.
Look where Miami is
For
now.
so many years. Yeah, absolutely. Look where Miami's gone. It can go one way or another. And Coach, as a lifelong Buckeye fan, it's always great to talk to you. So appreciative of what you did for the Ohio State University. And enjoy retirement. It's okay to take your foot off the gas. Relax and smell the roses.
Thanks,
All
Coach.
righty. Thanks so much, guys. Have
Thank
fun.
you, Coach.
The great Jim
Bye now.
Tressel on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. I remember I wasn't sure about Jim when they hired him. Youngstown State, I knew he'd had a lot of success there, but the question I asked was, it's one thing to do it at 1AA. It was at the time 1AA.
Yeah.
I said, but, I think this is a job that requires someone that's done it at the Division I level. I was hoping they would go get either an up-and-coming young coach from one of the Power Fives that had made noise. And what put me over the top, and I never wavered after this, was when he was introduced at St. John Arena, and he grabbed the mic at halftime.
Yep.
And he said, you're going to be proud of these men in the classroom, and 308 days or whatever the number was, you're going to be proud of them on the field.
Yes, that was
up in
amazing.
Ann Arbor. And I was like, whoa.
Fired everybody up.
This dude just wrote a check that I'm not sure he can cash. Because the team was not very good. The John Cooper years at the end were a little lean.
And Dustin was going to go to Penn State.
That's amazing
And
to
Jim,
hear that.
And then Jim Tressel called him. He's like, I'm going to Ohio State.
Jim had that effect on a lot of kids that were on the fence.
Yeah.
And I think you know what 17-year-old boys like. They like that braggadocious confidence, and a lot of kids heard that around the state and might have been thinking about Michigan
fired up.
or Miami or Florida State, and they said, wow, I want to go take whatever hill that guy's taking.
Yeah.
And really, he had immediate success, long-term success. I hate the way his time at Ohio State ended, Thought
It seems so silly now,
huge
doesn't it?
injustice
That he lost
to
his
him.
job because of that.
Well, that's why I wanted to
It's
ask the
so
NIL
absurd.
question. You know what was interesting was he never pertained it to him. I wish they would have had that when I was
Right.
there.
Nah,
he
he's not gonna
went
do
back
that,
as
but
he
yeah.
should have to when college football really became the cash cow 40 years ago and said, I wish they would have been more fair and equitable to the players.
So
then."
ridiculous.
What a classy
Think
guy.
about what he lost his job for.
It's insane.
Just insane. It's absurd.
From one legend to another, you guys. We've got one on the line right now.
Aditi's with us.
Yeah,
now.
that's
Love more than
absolutely
anybody.
right.
We got
Hi,
Aditi with us.
Sorry
Hi,
to keep you
Aditi.
waiting.
Hi, everybody. Happy Diwali.
Yeah,
That's right.
Same to you.
We did a story on
Happy
that yesterday
Diwali.
on Channel 5. For those that don't know, a brief explainer. Tell everybody what it is.
It is the Festival of Lights celebrated all throughout India amongst many religions. And the idea is that may light shine over darkness, may knowledge always win over ignorance, and may good always triumph over evil. It's
Hard
a
to
time to
argue.
sort of hit refresh and hope that the next year is even better.
You need to tell that to the Browns.
I didn't realize it was not a religious holiday. That it's all just. Like
I didn't either until yesterday. I learned a lot about it yesterday.
That's why I like Thanksgiving so much, because it's not a religion. It's not, you don't have to be a
It's
certain religion.
cultural.
It's an American holiday.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
But how
So
do you
this
not
is
get your arms
cultural.
around that?
Exactly.
Yeah, again, and it's all about partying and celebrating, and unfortunately, I have not been able to do that with my children, but I hope one day. Isn't that funny? This is what life is, right? Your parents give you traditions, and they matter, and you think we want to carry them on to our own children, and then life sometimes gets in the way. So
Yeah.
I'll
That's
work
the
on it.
truth.
At least
Yes,
it's 5
let's-
days. Diwali is officially 5 days, so I hope that one of these days this week I can make
hey.
my children dress up and dance.
One thing Americans love, and Cinco de Mayo proved this. Once they found out that there's a party involved, this is
Yeah.
festive.
We will we'll culturally incorporate anything if it gets us off work for a day.
That's right. And if it's a party,
Absolutely.
But
You got some drinks over there?
Yep.
what I loved about, what I learned more about it yesterday, because I'd heard of it before, but I really didn't know a lot about it. But in hearing it yesterday, I'm like, so who can't sign on to that? And there's a movement in the
Right.
U.S. to make it obviously have a higher profile here, and I think that's how these things get going in the
Pro-Diwali
United
crowd.
States. Is we educate, we learn about them, and hopefully,
Yes,
because what's fascinating is it's not religious, and
Right.
like, who isn't for pizza? You know, like everybody. So the Diwali to me seems kind of like the festive thing on the calendar that is sort of pizza. Like it's for
Right.
everybody. Like you can't argue with anything
And
that it's for.
it's not a change. It's not, like we say that Christmas in a lot of ways has turned into a Hallmark holiday. I mean, how many Jewish friends do you have? How many Muslim friends do you have that still celebrate with how many friends did I have that called it a Hanukkah bush, And,
Sure.
But this is not what this is based in. This isn't trying to Hallmark eyes a day. It's just saying, hey, here's an opportunity to hit reset.
It's funny that
Here's
you
an
said that.
opportunity to-
Because
go ahead.
yesterday,
Sorry.
it's funny that you said that because yesterday on What's New, our Channel 3 program in the late afternoon, we had a professor on, an area professor, who actually was contacted by Hallmark to tell. So they're trying.
Yeah.
They try to
But-
commercialize everything.
So he actually helped design 5 different Diwali cards because he had reached out to them and said, hey, well, there's nothing for this day. I want to celebrate this day and share it with a card, and there's nothing. So our area professor actually designed 5 cards, and now here you go.
Good luck finding a Hanukkah card on the west side of Cleveland, too.
Oh,
That ain't happening.
Yeah,
But
probably not.
Aditi,
Did
let's
you have
get
a Hanukkah bush? Adam, did you have a Hanukkah
No, I did not have a
bush?
Hanukkah bush.
Okay, did you
Hanukkah
have...
bush.
did
He's
you
laughing at that.
Did you get gifts? Did you get gifts for the 8 days of Hanukkah?
My son does. I didn't. I got, I
Yeah,
was lucky
see,
if I
it's
got one
perfect.
gift when I was a kid.
I had a friend
Yeah.
who I grew up with, and he tried telling me that Hanukkah was not about gift giving. That was just something that was sort of done to compete with Christmas.
I don't know if that's actually true. I'm not sure. I mean, it's always been a part of the holiday, but most kids I knew didn't get 8 days of gifts. No, we would get.
Yeah.
I got one day. But I try to make it special for my son because he doesn't, because everybody else he knows is celebrating Christmas, so I try to make it extra special. But but anyway.
I hear you. That's what we're saying about the next generation, right?
All right, enough about these
In any
depressing
case, I know-
religious
yeah.
holidays that are not supposed to be depressing. Anyway, I want to get. We were talking about Kareem Hunt before and whether the Browns may trade him here before the deadline. if you're the Browns, would you do it now, even before this Bengal game, if you had the right opportunity, or do you want to try to see if you can win this game? Because outside of the Chiefs and the Bills and maybe the Bengals, who are playing better now, nobody else in the AFC is really all that good. It's not impossible if the Browns win this game that they could somehow get to 9 wins, and maybe 9 wins gets you in the playoff. It's not looking good now, but it's not impossible. So do you wait and maybe trade him then, or if you get a good enough offer, do you do it right now because you're 2-5?
You know what? I think at the end of the day, and so a few things.
Yeah.
You're right. It's just about getting into the dance, right?
Yeah.
And how many teams do we know? I was just actually watching video. The Ravens Super Bowl winning team gathered the 2012 team gathered this past Saturday. And Dennis Pitta was talking, and he was talking about how that team went on a 3-game losing streak. And of course, they fired their offensive coordinator in December, whatever. They ultimately get into the dance and they win. And the Giants the previous year had lost 4 in a row at the end of the season and still somehow, win their last 2, get in the dance, and they upset the Patriots. So it is about just getting in. Mm-hmm. So you're not out of it until you're mathematically out of it. That's all very true. But I think a really good offer, or whatever is sort of a lights out, I'm blown away, this makes way too much sense offer, is the same today as it is next week. I don't think that changes. If you're getting what the 49ers were willing to give for Christian McCaffrey, then of course you're going to sit here long and hard, and is that worth it? Then okay, you move. I don't know what waiting 1 week does. I don't know how that makes a difference. I think the bigger problem, of course the Browns are listening, because Andrew Berry is going to listen to anything and everything, and he wouldn't be doing his job if he wasn't listening. There is not a absolutely no way, never will we trade Kareem Hunt. That doesn't exist. So it's not as if it's impossible, but it's not necessarily a fire sale here. Andrew Berry's not going to give the guy away. And I don't know what changes before or after this game. I mean, if you get such an amazing lights out offer, you do it. What's the point in waiting until next week?
Well, I guess
that's
in
my
theory,
take on
you have
that.
a better chance.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, I guess my only argument would be, if you beat the Bengals, it feels like you still got a shot. Whereas if you lose that game, you're not mathematically eliminated, but you're 3 games out of first and don't have the tiebreaker. It goes from like a 5% chance or a 10% chance to like less than 1%. But in the end, they're not using Kareem Hunt much anyway. So what's the point of holding on to him?
They're not using Nick Chubb enough. My goodness. Forget Kareem Hunt. Why isn't Nick Chubb getting the ball more?
Wow.
Why do I feel like I keep saying the same thing over and over and over again? Give the ball to Nick Chubb. That's it.
Explain it to us. Why is it happening? Please explain it to us, Aditi. What is he thinking? What is Stefanski doing?
Come on. You think if I knew that? I just, honestly, I was with the Titans this weekend, okay? So I had the Titans.
Oh, yeah, I watched you on the post-game interview.
Yeah, you're great.
Good job.
Well, thanks. Okay, so so Friday, we're in our production meetings, and, let's be honest here. The Titans don't have a wide receiver 1, and no offense, I don't even know that they have a wide receiver 2. Maybe they have a wide receiver 2.5. The Titans are going to run the ball. You know they're going to run the ball. You know that they need to ride Derrick Henry. And guess what? Do you know what they do? They ride Derrick Henry.
Tannehill's not very good either.
It's not that complicated.
Yeah.
You've got a guy who's one of the 2 best running backs in the National Football League. You've got a guy that's imposing his will. You've got a guy this past weekend that they can't stop. What was it, 13 carries? Is that what he had, 16 carries?
16
this week.
16 carries?
91.
I mean, how does that make sense?
I know. I'm so glad you're on board with this. Aditi's the smartest voice we hear from every week. You are. And sometimes we bring up things that we all agree on and we think are common sense, and you're like, no, boys, let me tell you exactly why you're wrong. And then I hear you and I'm like, she makes a really good point.
Right. Except when it comes to the Steelers, they suck.
On this one,
you got a blind spot there.
On this one,
no, I mean that's a whole other conversation we can have as soon as
it is. Yeah, don't take us down that road yet, Bull.
Sorry.
But I'm glad to hear that you're on board, because there are people. Jason, I really respect Jason's opinion, but he's like, guys, he's number 2 in the league.
Well, I say that too.
Number 3 in the league.
He should be,
I said, I don't care. He should be number 1 by a lot.
In fairness, he and I, who have both said that a lot, agree that he hasn't been used enough the last 2 weeks.
I just think in
I
general.
think, but here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
The number one thing is diagnosing who you are, right? You need to acknowledge and recognize who you are. So I'll go back to the Titans. Going into this game against the Colts, the Titans had the worst pass defense in the NFL. They had the second to worst offense in the NFL. They seemingly are a mess in a million different ways. Their secondary isn't what it once was. They've suffered a massive amount of injuries, and yet here they were sitting at, what were they? I think they were 4-2 going into that game. They're now 5-2. They were leading their division. You know why? Because they know exactly who they are. Yep. Mike Vrabel isn't trying to be somebody else. He's not having Ryan Tannehill spread it out and throw it downfield and do crazy things. He's like, look, this is how we're going to have to win. We're going to have to play great run defense, and we're going to have to run the ball. Derrick Henry is going to have to run over people. That's it, period, end of sentence. And that's why the Titans are winning. Do you look at them and say, oh my gosh, this is the Bills? No. Do you look at them and say, oh my gosh, this is the Chiefs? No. But they are 5-2 because they acknowledge and recognize who they are, and they use the pieces they have to do what they need to do. And that's my problem with the Browns right now. Run the ball. That's it. Wow. Run the ball.
Totally fair.
Run the ball.
All fair, although ultimately the Titans will do what they always do, lose in the playoffs because they don't have a good enough quarterback.
At least they'll get there.
At least they'll
get there.
I don't want to see two wins.
No, I agree. But the Browns will have a quarterback at the end of the year, and then they can do it differently. But
Mikey Nuggets
what if
has a
they're
question.
not getting in at that point?
Go ahead,
Again,
Yeah, I mean, they're not because they don't know who they are and they haven't played to their
That's
strength.
fair.
But
That's
Nick
all
Chubb's
fair.
going to be fresh. He's going to play till he's 60.
And by the way, if you go to the playoffs every year and you lose all the time early, eventually you're like, this sucks. This is not good enough. Let's fire the coach.
Yeah, but it's better than sucking every year.
It's not.
No,
It's
it
a
is.
nice-
It
It's
is.
a nice
Trust me,
ride.
I'd rather
Trust
suck
me, I
every year
would
than go
know.
to the playoffs.
No.
I would know.
Your Bengals have been objectively better than the Browns. You've been to three Super Bowls.
But when the Bengals went to the playoffs every year and lost in the first round 5 years in a row,
I'll tell you
I was like,
Super
this sucks.
Bowl.
I'll tell you why you're wrong.
Well, now they got Joe Burrow
I'll
because now they got Joe Burrow.
I'll tell you why you're wrong, because you haven't walked with your head down out of a Browns stadium in the middle of the season, not enjoying the season. You got to enjoy the ride there at least and enjoy
So you
that
had one
season.
bad week in the
But
playoffs.
You know,
I'm
that
saying,
stinks.
get 16 bad weeks
that's
in
a
the regular
whole, We're
season.
talking being done by November, or the beginning of November every single
First
year.
mistake is going to a
And
football
that
game.
is-
Aditi,
Should never go
Mikey
to a
has a
football
question
game.
for
Sorry,
you. And
sorry, go ahead,
he tells me
Aditi's got to run. She got a doctor.
Oh, sorry,
damn it.
Aditi. Go.
We will save the
Quick
question.
question,
no,
Mike.
for
Ask your
the
question.
first time in 8 years, I'm actually tempted to have you make me miss it. For the first time in 8 years, I'm having a physical and I'm having a
What?
panic attack about it.
I'm
Well, you know,
so
I've spent
disappointed
8
in
years,
you.
You'll be fine.
pregnant, having babies, losing babies, taking care of babies. It's like I just haven't had time.
You
And
make
then-
time for yourself. You make time for yourself.
But I'm trying to do.
I'm
but
glad
really-
to hear. I'm glad to hear
Well,
you
we got to
finally
hear
are.
Mike's question, though, before you go.
Yeah,
No,
go
because
ahead, Mike.
it's going to lead to a whole thing, and then she's going to miss her appointment, and I do not want to be the.
No, Mikey, go ahead.
Ask
I'll
the question.
try
Let's
to
go.
answer.
All right, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. There's not a clear-cut leader in this Browns team. We saw the reports after the game on Sunday yelling in the locker room. My question to you, Aditi, is can someone step up and become a leader mid-season, or is that something that's almost predetermined before the year starts? And if you
No,
can, is anyone on this Browns capable of stepping into that role?
First of all, I think that whenever you hear about what happens in a locker room, it's just exacerbated or taken to the nth degree. Okay, it's never as crazy or dramatic as outsiders try to make it be. So that's number one. Number two, of course, leaders develop. And some people are natural leaders and some people work at it. We've talked about Myles Garrett making a very, very conscious effort to try to be more of a leader and less of a loner this year. But there are guys that are inherently leaders just in the way that they work, in the way that they behave. Being a leader isn't always screaming at the top of your lungs or gathering guys to sit around a circle and sing Kumbaya. There is no question that Deshaun Watson is a leader. I think what's difficult is him not being in that role right now and him not necessarily being in the locker room on game day. I think you may see a difference then. But a guy like Joel Bitonio is a leader too. And he's a leader in just the time that he's put in there. These are not issues that are, oh my goodness, a lack of leadership. This is not a fracturing of the team in a certain way. This is that the Browns are not running the ball enough.
Fair.
Shouldn't I
Well
be an offensive
summarized.
coordinator?
The calm.
Hey, you're right.
While the rest of us are screaming and yelling, mostly me, you have the calm.
And your
calm
blood
approach.
pressure
No.
will show that at that physical,
Yeah.
and we're going to find out that you have a perfect bill of health. I
I'm
just
a
have a
nervous
feeling.
guy.
Way to
I'm
bring it
really
back.
Nervous. I don't want to step on the scale. I don't want to hear the doctor.
Nonsense.
Aditi,
All the
would you
testing I
stop
need.
it?
Just
on the
go.
You know what the doctor's going to say even
Anyway.
before he takes a look at anything else? He's going to say, Aditi,
Gee.
great hair day. Great hair day. That's what your doctor's going to say.
All right, but Jay, you just did what my husband did. My doctor is a she. She's can be doctor too.
You
Women's
know
can-
what?
women
The
can be
damn male
doctor also.
chauvinists.
Reminds
Sorry, male
me,
chauvinists.
yeah, reminds me of that too.
All right.
Okay?
Smart move.
Do you remember that joke about the boy who gets in the car accident? Really
Yeah.
quickly, and then I really have to go.
I don't
You know
remember
what I'm
that.
talking about, Mikey? Okay, so a boy gets in a car accident. It's really terrible. And the ambulance
this.
comes and they rush him to the hospital and he gets into the emergency room and the doctor looks at the boy and says, "Oh no, I can't operate on this boy. This is my son." And the doctor was his mother.
And nobody ever gets it.
Wow.
Yeah, no one ever gets it. I left out part of it, but
By
that's
the way,
because I have
smart
to
move. All my doctors are female. I don't go to men for doctors. It's a bad move to go to a male doctor.
I just find a good doctor.
Guys,
Except
I'll
for,
take
except
what
for
you say.
two things. See you, Aditi.
Bye,
Bye,
Aditi.
Aditi.
Peace.
The only time I go to a male doctor is for urology, because a male's going to know a male's parts, and physical
You
therapy.
know what?
That's it.
I just proved that,
Yeah.
my male chauvinist brain popped
Yeah.
out there when I said
I'm a woman
he.
chauvinist.
You are a woman chauvinist. You really are. Like, we were talking about babysitters.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm sorry, boy, male should never babysit.
Whoa, I didn't say that.
I said
You
that.
said that. What
I
are you
said
talking
that.
about?
Didn't he say that?
No,
No,
I
no.
said I wouldn't let a stranger
No.
who's a male because I don't trust people.
Bush
Oh,
was the
I
one
thought
who
you were
said-
definitively in
No,
the.
No.
I said that,
That was G. Bush.
definitively.
But
Okay.
you would let a stranger who's a female watch your kid.
No, not a stranger.
Well, I wouldn't
Okay.
let any stranger watch
When
my kid.
I- when
I hear
I-
these stories about people finding babysitters on whatever that website is, babysitter.com.
Care.com?
Yeah. And they, like, that blows me away.
My,
the level
my
of
parents would leave me with
desperation.
like somebody down the street. My
That-
parents would be
how
like,
do you
"What's your
ever
name,
know?
Ron? This is where you're staying for a
Jay,
couple
how
of
are you
days."
supposed to find
Times
someone?
are different. Times are different.
We found our initial, when my son was young, we found our initial babysitter through care.com.
I'm just stunned at
we
that.
did.
That's
we
all.
interviewed them. We called. We
You
got
did it
the
responsibly. What I
references.
said
Of
was
course.
that find someone on babysitter.com.
Oh.
And that night is watching
No,
their
of course
kids.
not. That's irresponsible. But I would never have hired a man.
Yeah.
Never.
And
Never.
that's what I'm saying.
But
I mean, you could paw that off on G, but you would
no,
never hire a man.
But I would trust. You were the one who said, "Oh, I can't babysit my
I can't.
grandkids."
I can't.
I mean, I don't have
can't.
grandkids,
but I know
can.
men that I would trust my kids with.
If I knew,
I just wouldn't do it.
I would trust you guys with my son.
I would hope
know
so.
you,
Yeah.
but I mean, I'm just saying, like, if I was hiring
But in
somebody,
general, you're looking for a female babysitter.
I like female. I like female doctors because generally I find females are more caring than males.
Hey, man, I just need to know
And so I think my doctor's a woman is going to take better care of me. That's just my general sense.
I get it.
Sorry, Mike.
I'll tell you something that, and Aditi hit a point right there. It's down to the point where we all understand what it is. Even Aditi, who usually comes up with very creative things to say and diagnose on what's going wrong and why it's going wrong.
Yeah.
Even she's to the point now where she's baffled and can't understand.
She loves Stefanski.
Why?
I loved what she said and how emphatically she said it because let's not forget she is an employee of
Right.
the team.
Yeah.
And she doesn't let
that
the
takes some,
paycheck
Right.
warp the
And that tells you how
opinion.
strongly she feels about it too, that she's willing to go down that.
Yes.
And now we're sitting here saying we have to trade Kareem Hunt, not because he's not good. It's just because
We're not using him.
he's a garage sale. He's left over. He's taking up space on the bench. That's crazy to me. That's
Part of it. Part of it's that they're not good, and so he's going to walk away as a free
Have
agent.
you seen the meme? It's like a Lamborghini parked in front of a trailer with a carport over top of it, and it says,
I'll find
Yes.
it. I've seen JT.
I have
Pickens,
seen that.
yes.
"This is Nick
Chubb
Chubb
on
with
the Browns. I have seen
Let's
it.
talk about this though for a second. Like, I know these aren't exactly parallel situations by any means, but say that Hunt does get traded and he ends up going to a contender, obviously, and say he ends up on Buffalo or something. Buffalo wins the Super Bowl. How would you guys feel about 2 years in a row of 1 year watching a guy who was on the team, Odell Beckham, scoring touchdowns on the Super Bowl winning team 1 year?
Keep me away
and
from
then the
sharp
next
objects.
year, in another Super Bowl, watching Kareem Hunt score touchdowns for Buffalo.
I'd call for the firing of Kevin Stefanski. I literally would call for it
because other teams are using our Lamborghinis to get trophies.
And we sitting here at 2-5, and I watched it last year, and I was pissed off all offseason because we talk here, we give everybody an excuse. No offseason, that hasn't got to get right with the quarterback. We don't. Maybe we need to get on the same page. And this dude walked into a team and scored more touchdowns than he had scored in his entire career.
And you know what's even more unforgivable about that comparison that you just made, where you said that we, for two times in a row, we're giving them our workhorses to finish the job there.
Right.
It's a different thing with baseball, because it's one thing to watch CC Sabathia go to the Yankees and help them.
We couldn't
afford him.
Right.
This is fair ground.
Yes.
Here, we just don't know how to use these resources.
Mike Polk is talking right now.
Spend the money.
Mike
Polk is preaching
It's
right
true.
now.
No, it's
It
true.
would be
absolutely right.
Now, they're different situations. In one way, it's worse with Kareem Hunt, because at least with Odell, you could put some of the blame on him.
Yeah, you could say
right. There's no blame to put on
he's been a
Kareem
model citizen in his time here. He did ask to be traded, but I think in his mind, here was his fear.
Yeah.
These guys are kicking my tires, but they're not taking me for a ride.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
I'm in my prime.
I'm in my prime.
My market value is being dictated by how they use me, and the track record says it's not very good.
And he wasn't asking for a trade just because he's unhappy. He said, trade me or pay me.
Pay me, right.
Right, he would have been happy to stay if they paid him more money.
You know why they didn't pay him?
Yeah.
Because they look at him as just a piece. If he was looked at in any other way, he would have more touches than 6 a game.
Sure, and now, in some fairness to the Browns, he's going to go to another team and he's going to play more than he even should play here. Because even though we all agree he should play more here, he shouldn't play as much as Nick Chubb, because Nick Chubb's better.
But it should be.
If he goes to Buffalo,
but he can play. He can be on the field more.
But he was never going to. Even if the Browns used him exactly the way we want, he wasn't going to be used here as much as he would on a team that doesn't have a Nick Chubb.
What are we going to do at tight end? We've got right now two tight ends out. One's in protocol, obviously.
Right.
Joe
Brown
Brown
got the ankle.
This is a topic for tomorrow.
Yeah. So here's I'm glad. I'm not glad anybody's hurt.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful that we're going to get a chance to see us play like every other team in the NFL, and that's a tight end in the game, but not 3 tight ends in the game.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jay, I mean, we've seen things that no one does. We've seen the tight end shovel pass.
Jet
sweep reverses. Let's come out and spot shadow Pharaoh Brown against the Patriots because we got something here. And he ain't even been in the system for 2 days.
What if this is what really made that running back tandem blow up this week? Chubb and Hunt finally just completely blow it up because Stefanski's like, I don't have 3 tight ends I can throw.
What
out
am I
there.
going to do?
I guess I got to put 2 great running backs out.
And you know what he's done too?
Here we go.
Even this
Maybe
is
I'll have Kareem Hunt block as a tight end.
Think about this. Even when they don't have that many tight ends in the game, they substitute an offensive lineman in and make him eligible.
That's true.
Instead of using Kareem Hunt.
Dunn's like, I'm eligible to catch a pass right now. I'm sure that's tricking everyone.
By the way, and what's sad is David Njoku was one of the few players on this team you could say was a pleasant surprise so far this year.
He's having a great season.
Yes.
Yeah. So put his numbers up again. So let's talk about a great season, okay?
Strong.
He's been so much better, but 34 catches through 6 games is
7.
Through 7 games is under 5 catches per game. The 318 yards. See, here's what we've become. We lowered our expectations for him because of what we had from him in the past.
Yes.
And now people are ready to look at this and say, he's been tremendous.
That's true. I do feel like some of these were big catches, though.
But remember, he's the 3rd highest paid at that
That's
position.
true.
He's
That
also,
means
Jay,
I
real
want
quick.
Mark
But
Andrews.
his arrow was pointing up, though, as the season's gone along.
It's absolutely pointing up.
Remember, the first week he didn't even catch a ball.
I know. Listen, I have him on my fantasy
I don't
team.
think
I know exactly what he's doing.
I got
Nobody's
him on
saying
2
he's
teams.
Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce.
But we're paying him like that.
Sure.
And
But
so
I
when
think,
the organization makes a decision to spend their marbles in, you got so many marbles, and you're going to put this many with this player and this many with that player, it's imperative that you don't overpay anybody for their production. And when we did the contract with Njoku, I was dumbfounded.
I was as well.
And we're still not getting commensurate production from what we're paying.
I think we were over the last month. I think we were.
I mean, the numbers for the season are what they are.
I know PFF isn't the Bible by any means, but you mentioned Kelsey and Mark Andrews being the top 2 tight ends. Well, they are 1 and 2 in Pro Football Focus overall tight end grades.
About that. I don't.
Njoku's 3rd. So,
yeah, I don't even care. Well, you know what? It's a 2 tight end league. Really?
Yeah, he's also
Waller for
he
the Raiders
catches it
has
when
been
it's
on a
thrown
milk
at him
carton.
this year. I think that's a big difference.
I think we see major improvement.
He's not
from
getting
David
enough.
Njoku.
I don't think he's getting looked at enough. I think that maybe they should look to him more. But I think he's looked like a real tight end this year, which is what I wanted. We're paying for a real tight end,
but we can't
and we had a
overpay.
real tight end.
We can't overpay.
Jay,
for
if you look at the first 2 games of the year, all right, he had 4 catches for 39 yards
combined.
Total.
Okay.
Yeah, between the 2 games. Last 5 games. And that's including him getting hurt in the Baltimore game. Last 5 games, he had 30 catches. I can't do the yards here real quick, but probably about 400 yards. No, it can't be 400.
No, he's only got 318 on the season.
Okay, so 318 minus 39.
No, it's actually 418. It's 418. That's a typo. We got to fix it.
That's a big
Come
difference.
on, Anthony.
Okay. So he's had last 5 games almost 400
But your point's
yards.
taken.
I like that.
Your point's taken. Our bar is low. Our bar is low.
No.
Has he been better? Absolutely.
But the last 5 weeks, he was really trending up.
But
Yes.
see, to me,
he needs to be better, though.
To me,
It's 3rd in the league in receiving yards for a tight end, by the way.
to me,
behind
where
Kelsey and
where
Andrews.
he
That's
has
where he should be.
where he has
That's
to
where he
pay
should be.
dividends is in the red zone. So he's has 1 touchdown, right?
Yeah.
And so my thing is, for a tight end, I want my tight ends to be targets in the red zone. He only has one touchdown. So my question is, if he's not getting the ball, scoring touchdowns,
Right.
Amari Cooper doesn't have that.
Kobe's only thrown 6 touchdowns. So
my thought process
Less than
is,
1 a game.
If he's not going to be a factor like that, then that would mean that when you get in the red zone, guess what I'm doing? If I'm not going to throw him touchdown passes,
Nick Chubb.
I'm giving it to either Chubb or Hunt.
I've been as hard on Njoku as anybody. I was 100% with you that I hated the contract. What I've seen the last 5 weeks from Njoku makes me think that with a full season with Deshaun Watson,
I'd
he'll
agree.
be 1,000
That
yards.
high ankle sprains him.
Hey, we're going to
Because-
talk a ton of Njoku later this week. If we don't get to Cavs now, we're not going to get into
All
it.
right,
We're
okay.
going to talk a little Cavs.
I'll just
Fun
quickly say
discussion.
it gives me hope with Chubb moving forward, of Chubb and Hunt combo.
Yeah.
Because if they figured out how to get Njoku more involved, then why can't they do it with the running backs?
I don't know.
Because to Aditi's point,
Yeah.
know who you are. Who are we? We're a running team. Our quarterback has 6 touchdowns. And by the way, if I have to listen to another broadcast of a Browns game where I hear the commentator time and time again say, wow, he had so-and-so wide open and he never saw him.
That happened
Wide open.
3 times in that game.
Sunday,
Wide open.
3 times.
This
For the
Sunday.
season.
I was
12,
yelling at
15
him.
times.
I was yelling at him so much.
And so that's going through your progressions and knowing that this one no. He just
Hopefully
It's
that's
almost
gonna
like he's a
change.
lifetime backup quarterback.
For a reason.
It's almost like he's a
Yeah.
lifetime backup
All
quarterback.
right, we're going to do Cavs, and I thought this was a really, really dynamic
God.
topic because I really had never thought of this before. Mikey sent the group a text and said, who's the second
was
best
tough.
Cav ever?
Very tough.
It was tough because obviously LeBron James slam dunk for the best. And this all came up because there's talk now, could Donovan Mitchell be the second best Cavs player ever? And I think that's probably the answer, but he's only played 3 games. But just in terms of what he's done already in his career and his skill set and how he looks different than everybody else, it might well be Donovan Mitchell, but obviously he has to do it for a length of time. But who do you have? Mike, you're the
Shaquille
Cavs
O'Neal.
guy.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Well,
Here's why.
based on their time.
Look at it. Wait. What? I'm just kidding. Of course, I'm
It
kidding.
had to
I'm
be
kidding,
just
guys.
during their time with the Cavs.
Totally kidding.
Otherwise, it would be Shaquille O'Neal.
I put Shaq. I put maybe Dwayne Wade on there. He's
Sure.
not bad.
Yep.
Isn't that funny that we had Dwayne Wade? Does everybody remember that for a
really
minute?
fun.
It's so weird. If you see a picture of him in that uniform, it's very disconcerting.
People forgot.
Yeah.
People have forgotten. And Dean Wade, I wish his first name was anything but Dean.
Yeah,
Because
I know.
every time, I think
I
on
know.
Sunday he had a 3. Dean Wade. nobody hears the end.
This was a really tough one for me, and it kept me up last night, along with my sinus infection, both things. But it gave me something to do during my sinus infection.
Yeah. Think about that.
And it was, it was a really tough call. And first of all, I have to rule out Ricky Davis, even though he's one of my favorite Cavaliers of all time. And I was at Ricky Davis's wrong way game, by the way, just so you know.
Oh, wow.
We'll talk about that someday.
Okay.
But it came down to me between Kyrie Irving and Mark Price. That's the tricky spot right there.
Yeah.
And then you have to look. Then see, this is where the parameters come into play. Are we talking about just what they did here? Are we talking about only their accomplishments with the Cavaliers? Are we talking about their accomplishments afterwards? Just their accomplishments with the Cavaliers?
Yeah, because otherwise Donovan Mitchell would be a discussion.
But in that case, if it's just your accomplishments with the Cavaliers, then it has to be Mark Price for me.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
just all-time free throw percentage leader. The way that he carried this franchise, the way that he turned this franchise around. He had some great talent around him, obviously. You could give credit to Brad Daugherty, and I wouldn't be mad at anybody if they went with Brad Daugherty, and we'll see if somebody does. But as far as what he brought to the team, I know that Kyrie helped with that, obviously with that shot, bring us that championship and whatnot. But he was surrounded by immense talent. LeBron James, I was going to write off his experience, Mark Price a little bit, but then when you got Brad Daugherty and Larry Nance next to you, too, you can't say that he was bereft of talent while he was here.
Sure.
So my all-timer would have to be Mark Price.
If you're just deciding between those two,
yes.
Just the fact that the biggest drama that Mark Price ever had was when he changed which side of his hair was parted.
Right.
The guy was a consummate pro.
Yes.
He made his teammates better.
Yes.
He was selfless.
All
in a
hustle,
lot of
good
ways.
D.
Yeah, he did everything
that's
that
the
you
other
want.
thing. Kyrie's a wizard, and I think if we're talking about just like a one-on-one matchup or something like that, then give me Kyrie any day of the week on Mark Price. But they played in different eras. I have to take that into consideration. Just with everything into consideration, and it really did keep me up. I got to give the nod to Mark Price.
I'm older, so I just want to give a nod to some guys that are not the second best player,
but then you
guys
will
that
tell
I
us your
love.
second best.
Nate Thurman.
Sure.
Bingo Smith.
Uh-huh.
World B free.
I considered World for a hot second. Averaged 22 while he was here.
And played hard and just was fun to watch. It was a fun guy to watch.
And when that franchise really needed somebody to be fun to watch.
Yeah, because he was all they had.
Yep.
Brad Daugherty obviously was an all-star center. The thing with him was the injuries.
Yep. Weren't for his
and
back.
the feet. Back, we'd have
a title.
Discussion.
I think we'd have a
sure.
title.
But all things being equal, for me, it came down to the same two guys that you chose, Mark Price, and I went ultimately with Kyrie because of his shot, because he was such a big impact player on the only championship the franchise ever won. And granted, if Mark Price had played with LeBron, they might have been able to get over those Bulls teams, so who knows? But for me, it's LeBron number one and a big gap between he and Kyrie Irving.
G?
Tractor trailer.
Robert Tractor Trailer, right?
No?
Shout out to Chris Mills.
Chris Mills.
Don't do it.
Was it Bobby Sura?
Bobby Sura was in there. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to
Booby.
Man, Shannon Brown, all them dudes. But Ira Newble, never mind. Never mind. Jamario Moon.
Put Isaac Okoro on that list.
Jamario Moon.
Jamario Moon, really? And these dudes were starting.
Was it Sasha Pavlovich?
Yeah.
Yes. The guy you guys had.
Sasha Pavlovich.
Wow.
Sasha is reincarnated into Jetty Osmond.
And Isaac Okoro might be Ira Newble 2.0.
Yes,
oh, no.
he is. Yes,
No,
he
I
is.
hope not.
I hope not, too.
Drew Gooden.
The only bad move that Kobe Altman has made in like the last 3 years.
Do you remember Drew Gooden's
anyway,
ducktail?
Oh, God.
Do you remember Drew Gooden's ducktail?
My goodness.
I do.
Disgusting.
So, listen, this one actually was pretty easy. It's Kyrie Irving because when you look at his stuff, man, Kyrie is just like, if you look at his accolades, 7-time All-Star now. He was All-Star in 2019 and 2021, so it didn't count. So that means while he was an All-Star here, he was 5-time All-Star. All-Star MVP in 2014, All-NBA 2019. That wasn't here, but also he made All-NBA third team, He is part of the 50-40-90 club, Rookie of the Year, first team All-Rookie, won the three-point contest, USA Male Athlete of the Year 2014, FIBA Cup MVP 2014. Obviously, he hit a huge shot to put them where they are. And to be honest with you, LeBron would have never came back if they didn't have Kyrie. Kyrie was the reason
he wasn't coming here if they didn't have a piece.
No. Because Kyrie, when he was Rookie of the Year, LeBron looked like, oh, wow, these guys are pretty good. And at the time, Deion Waiters was fool's gold, right? Mm-hmm. So he thought like, okay, I got me one. He got here and realized, oh, no, we can't do this. But Kyrie was pretty much the dude that...
In fairness, Kyrie wouldn't have been here if LeBron wouldn't have left.
You're right. That's a fact too.
That's exactly right. One led to the other, which led to the other.
He basically traded in Dwayne Wade for Kyrie Irving. He was like, oh, I could work with this. And LeBron actually changed his game a little bit. People don't understand how hard it is to win a championship by doing my turn, your turn.
Yeah.
I mean, and they did my turn, your turn to the highest level it's ever been. You go back to some of them games in the finals where they're playing Golden State and you get 40 apiece. Those are, you usually tell somebody, you let LeBron get 40, everybody else can't get no points. But they was doing that the whole year. He averaged more points than Kyrie, than LeBron. He had 25 points a game. He averaged more shots than LeBron. I just think Kyrie, if you look at it, when we look back at history, and he's already said it, he looks back at it, he's going to say, we could have had so much more championships.
Who gets credit for being, or blame, for being the Yoko Ono of that team? Was it LeBron or was it Kyrie, in your mind?
Oh, no, it was definitely Kyrie. See, so here's and this rubs off, and this shows you about the Browns and the way things work. So when you get the bag, like, you got to think about it. He already hit the shot, right? Mm-hmm. He was already a max player, right? He had already got a Nike deal, signature Nike deal. And he started to get around and he said, look, man, I need to have my own stuff. At that point, for him, winning was not the biggest thing because he already had won. At that point, he just wanted to be on the level, the guy, Durant. I want to be known as Durant. I want to be LeBron. I want to be Steph Curry.
And he could never do that in LeBron's shadow.
Never do that here. So
Fact of the matter is, though, he's not that dude.
No.
And he found that out.
He did.
He's as much as admitted that. He's as much as admitted that.
Guys, to me, again, Mark Price is a good choice, and I think Brett Doherty's a good choice as well. But I'm in agreement with you guys. I don't really think it's that close between Mark Price and Kyrie Irving. What's funny is it feels like Mark Price played here a lot longer. I think he only played 2 more seasons total.
I thought he was here 9. I don't know. How many years?
Maybe it was 3. I think Mark Price was 9 years, and I think Kyrie was 6.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
6?
I think correct on both. I think.
And Mark Price was a hell of a player, but he's not a Hall of Famer.
No.
Kyrie Irving's probably going to be a Hall of Famer. Now, the basketball at Hall of Fame, unlike baseball and football, I have no sense
they all get in.
of the guys on the borderline, who's in, who's out.
But every other sport, if you have to think about it, they're not in. But in the NBA, but in the basketball Hall of Fame, if you have to think about it, they're in.
And by the way, you know a guy who we haven't even mentioned who deserves to be part of the conversation?
Kevin Love.
Now,
he's 3 to me.
He's he's definitely top 5, and he's going to play here.
Longevity, yep. Right, you're right.
But as obviously,
we're looking at their work here.
Yes. He's been here. Kevin Love's been here like a decade now.
But he did his best work in
Minnesota. Yes.
Yeah, he was the 25-12 guy in Minnesota.
It's easy to say, well, the Cavs don't win a championship without LeBron, because that's true. But the Cavs don't win a championship without Kyrie.
No, they don't.
They do not win that championship without Kyrie.
That's true.
And
I don't think they win it without Kevin Love.
No.
I don't.
Nope.
I think
maybe
it
not.
took all 3.
Maybe not. Maybe you needed all 3. But you needed Kyrie more than Kevin Love, in my opinion.
No question.
And because of the way it ended and because of how his career has gone since, and he's so wacky, he says wacky things, he's missed a lot of time, we sometimes forget how good he was and still is when he's on the court.
Yeah, G said this once. G said, go back and watch any of the games against Golden State.
Right.
Because I'm with you. I was so pissed when he left that I was just like, that guy's mud.
F him.
And his game in my mind went down. But I've also gone back. I've watched Game 6 and Game 7.
Lord.
And my mouth is agape. I'm just like, this dude is better than I remember him being.
His ability to take the ball to the basket at his size And the way he goes behind the back and he's over the, I mean,
You're right, he's a wizard.
crazy shots. It's almost it's like he's one of the greatest we've
But
ever
I think
seen.
I think he submarined his own
He,
career
of
and
course,
legacy.
100%
Because he
did.
and LeBron could have won multiple championships here.
Absolutely.
And
They
a
let
lot of
egos
guys
get in the way.
win one. A
Yeah.
lot of guys
Yep.
win one.
Yeah.
It takes that special guy to win two, and when you win three, now you're in the pantheon of all-time greats.
Right.
Not that you're going to be one, but when you start listing off the names, if you're a primary player on a team that's won three, you're on that list. And I don't know
LeBron,
that he'll
Shaq,
ever be on
Kobe,
that
Bird,
list
Magic.
because he went and teamed up with Durant,
And now
and
Durant
they
need
can't
three.
figure out
Right.
one side of the Rubik's
Right.
Cube.
It was ego got in the way. Now, LeBron's partly to blame for that, right? LeBron
Is
should
he?
have reached, in my opinion, again, I'm not inside that locker room, and Jason would be a good person to bring this up to, but LeBron should have reached out to Kyrie and said, hey, let's figure it out, right? Shouldn't LeBron have done that?
I think he did. He didn't answer his calls.
Yeah, but didn't he do that after already a lot
but
of
the
time
thing
had
is,
passed?
here's the thing. You can be the wrong party in that, especially these are young guys with egos.
Right.
And LeBron not being wrong doesn't mean he did the right things. You know what I mean? Like, here's Kyrie being kind of crazy. If you're a mature person, you might be able to be like, this guy's being crazy, here's how to handle this guy. But I think LeBron just kind of shut it down and just didn't try to deal with it properly because he didn't have the training at that time or the
Yeah, that's a
emotional
good point.
maturity
He thought it would
to
fix
deal with it.
itself
He's
or
like,
go
that's not my
away.
problem.
Yeah.
He's the wrong guy, I'm the right guy.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to be like, he's the wrong guy, I'm the right
the
guy,
bigger
and I
guy,
still
and-
have to fix this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he wasn't at that
Yeah.
point.
What a
It's
shame,
unfortunate.
too.
It is unfortunate. But you know who never ran into that problem? Mark Price, Brad Daugherty, Larry Nance. They all got along great. They had each other. They pushed the Bulls to the limit. They happen to run into the best player of all time probably a couple of times in the playoffs, or else they might have a couple of titles too. And then I think maybe Mark Price. Also, one more thing in defense of Mark Price. I was at multiple games at Richfield Coliseum where he would go step forward and sing the national anthem while as a player.
Are you kidding?
As a player.
I don't
and
ever
then
remember
go back
that.
up. Yes, he would sing the national anthem himself.
In uni.
Yes, he was at a gospel. He was like in
get
a
some bonus points
he was
for
in
that.
like a gospel
Okay.
group too that you
I
can
didn't know
find
that.
online of Mark Price singing with like a 4-man gospel group, and it's pretty great and pretty hilarious at the same time. I highly recommend.
Love it.
Oh, we got to
He
find
got
that
pipes.
video
Mark
and
Price
play
has
it,
pipes.
Mike.
Yeah, I
Mark
never saw
Price singing
never
as
saw
part of a
Kyrie
gospel
Irving.
group.
Never saw
I'm
Kyrie
sure we have the
Irving
rights
singing.
to that.
I will look into it. Right now, we got to do, though, some internet comments. Some names that in the chat people say we have missed. Have a Big Z maybe up there.
Stop it.
Evan Mobley and Andre Miller popped up a lot of times. I
No,
don't
these
know.
are,
Evan
these are good
Mobley.
players. Like I rattled off a bunch from the 70s.
Evan
and
Mobley
80s.
played
Miller.
1 year.
There is no reason to get mad at these bad answers, you guys. You're right. They're wrong. You guys are wrong, but let's not get mad at them.
Let's hope 10 years from now we're saying Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and Evan Mobley are the second, third, and fourth best
Wesley
players. in
Person.
history.
Would that not be
Right?
wonderful?
But right now, that's absurd.
Wesley Person.
Brevin Knight, get out of here.
Yeah, please.
We all
Shout out
love
J.R.
Mobley.
Smith.
He's played 1 year.
Sagana Job.
We have Eddie's jingle tomorrow. I put it in. I put it in the wrong spot. It'll be tomorrow. Eddie's got a great jingle for us. But today we're talking to the internet, and that means we're talking with our friends over at PCC Airfoils. If you're looking for a job with career advancement and great benefits, PCC Airfoils is a leading manufacturer in Northeast Ohio. All locations of PCC Airfoils in Eastlake, Mentor, Wickliffe, and Minerva are hiring for all positions starting at $18 and up, plus full benefit packages, paid time off, and a signing bonus. You can apply online at precast.com/careers for more.
And let me say real quick, I don't have a jingle because I thought we were running the Eddie commercial, but we keep it real on the show. We love PCC. They've been a big supporter of us since the beginning. Mike's being phony by saying they're our good friends. We don't know anybody personally.
Why
at
don't we
PCC.
invite them in to
So
sit
let's
in
be
these
honest
chairs
about
and
that,
watch our
Mike. We
show?
keep it real on this show.
Mr.
Don't say they're our
Airfoil,
good-
come in.
I hate when people, when radio and TV people all go, my good friends at blah, blah, blah. You don't know those people. Don't say they're your good friends.
You know what, though, Mikey?
if you
Mikey
go-
is
if-
so not ill-intended here.
I know that.
He's a
But we
genuinely
keep
nice
it
guy.
real. We keep it real.
They're our only sponsor right now, so you know what?
We
Hey,
love them.
They're our damn good friends. They're my
Forget
best
what
friends.
they
Good
talking
answer.
about.
Good
Hey,
answer.
Forget what they talking about, Mr. PCC.
They like
as
us
long
better
as
for our honesty.
That check keep coming through here. We got you.
Garrett
I
and I
love
will
They
you.
are my
paint your
best
house.
friends. We got 2 super chats. We got to read them. We'll do final takes. Jay Boyer says the head coach isn't trying to win the game, and we have 2 caddies in the garage with Chubb and Hunt, but he wants to look classy and afford with Brissett at the 4 Seasons. He's not even a navigator. Play Marty ball. And then Roberto El Presidente says, In the chat, we hired a new staff for the Cleveland football team. We have Hasbin, Pravinsky, and our GM Dingleberry.
Pravinsky. I love that. Pravinsky.
What about the owner? What about the idiot owner? He's
He
the
ain't
biggest
called no
problem.
plays. Jimmy Haslam ain't calling no plays, and he don't tackle people. John, JJ, no, tackle somebody.
Oh,
One more name we missed, by the way, Austin Carr.
Yeah, you know what?
some
That
respect on
that
that.
was a miss.
Yeah,
Not
that-
that he was ever going to be considered for
Yeah,
number 2.
I
but
didn't see.
That
we
was
we
before my
mentioned a lot of
He
other
deserves
great
to be
names.
mentioned.
Austin Carr was a swing and a miss.
Yep,
Yeah,
Mr.
and I
Cavalier.
should've known better.
Mr. Cavalier.
Because that was my era. One thing I wanted to mention quickly, because we had him on the show last week, but St. Ignatius played their final regular season game.
Yeah.
And Chico, they won. They beat that team from Canada, which is kind of like an IMG team. They recruit, they bring in kids to get them ready to go to Division I colleges
Yeah, but
in
let's
the
not
US.
pretend like they brought in a team that they were going to lose to for his last game, right?
Well, this team crushed Menor.
okay.
Oh, okay. Well, they're good.
So
then.
there's your hey.
Okay,
They're
okay.
legit.
Good for them.
They weren't like a pansy
They might have
pushover.
scheduled it before they knew he was retiring. Even.
Yeah.
I don't know how far.
They
advanced.
did. Yes, they
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
They did
But
because he
they're
didn't announce his
Canadian.
retirement
They're
until the
Canadian.
beginning of this year.
They're Canadian. Come on. Come on.
Yeah, Josh Naylors.
All right.
But the interesting thing was they had a field goal opportunity to win it at the end of the game. I think St. Ignatius blocked it. So they won one for the Gipper.
Nice.
And,
That's awesome.
Do we know who they're playing this week in the playoffs?
Yeah, it's Oakville or the Green. It's not good. They'll win this game, and then I think if Cleveland Heights is in the other bracket, I think Cleveland Heights will win their game. I think they can beat Cleveland Heights to get to which I think would be a rematch with St. Ed's, which that's where their season would likely end.
They got the COVID rules now. Everybody get in the playoffs.
Everybody get in.
Everybody's in.
They really changed it up, and now there's a 1-9 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
A 1-9.
I mean, but you know what? Look.
Let the kids in. They're kids.
They're
Let
kids,
them
right?
play one high school.
Yeah.
One more game.
There was people I played with that you still cry to this day over beers. Every time you get a couple shots in them, man, we never got to go to the playoffs. I needed that one time.
And
Well,
there
that's
were
tragic.
teams-
That's a different emptiness in their life.
As Bob Watson said in the Astrodome in the Bad News Bears breaking training, let the kids play.
That's right. There were years. I'm dating myself in the early '80s when we were 8-2 and missed. Like that was not uncommon. You pretty much could lose. It's almost like college football. Like you could lose once and still have a chance. That second loss, the computer did crazy things.
Oh my God!
And you had to wait and see until it spit out the matchup.
If Coach Kyle wins out, does that become a Disney movie? Is his whole life like that? It is immediately like
I mean, he still might
Disney
get
Plus,
one.
straight to Disney Plus, or
No,
is it
I
going
think
to
we're
theaters?
going big screen.
Yeah,
We're going big screen?
Yeah, we're going big
Wow,
screen.
all right. Well, we'll work out a treatment. We'll write it and we'll send it in.
Because that means they would have to come back and beat St. Ed's, who beat them like
They
100
beat
to
them
nothing.
49-6 earlier this year.
I was at
so
the game,
they'd be-
and let me tell you, early in the third quarter, they went to a running clock. OHSAA has a rule that once the game is, I believe, 30 points, you go to a running clock. And it was early in the third
Wow,
quarter.
when they start doing that?
Yeah, a couple years ago. Years ago, which is a good rule. Don't get down by 30.
Yeah, don't.
They won't have
Good
to do
rule
that.
of thumb.
Yeah.
What's that?
Run the
Good
clock.
rule of thumb.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
it's time for final takes.
final takes.
Polk sent us some props for this one.
Yeah, you
Bull,
should lead us
start,
off.
and then we got Polk up next.
All right, very quick. The World Series starts on Friday. It's weird that it's starting on Friday.
It was supposed to all along, but because the series were quick.
Well, no, I'm just saying. Well, only because of the lockout, they pushed it. Everything got pushed back.
Yeah, but also
normally the World Series is like Tuesday, Wednesday, and then
Yeah.
off Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday. But anyway, I know baseball's kind of off the radar for most people because the Guardians lost. But the good news is the Yankees lost too. Now I am rooting for the Phillies. A lot of people hate Kyle Schwarber, but I of course like him, and I'll be rooting for him and Bryce Harper and all those guys to beat the Astros. However, I will say that the Astros deserve credit, right? You know, everybody when they cheated, which a lot of other teams did, I believe, not to that degree maybe, but everybody's trying to cheat, which I hate because I don't like to cheat. I'm anti-cheating. And when the Astros won, it was like, oh, they're a fraud. They never would have won. Well, all they've done is keep winning since, and now they're on the verge of winning a championship, and they haven't lost a single playoff game. I think it's time to kind of get off the bandwagon of just killing them at this point. They've paid their dues for it.
and I love Dusty Baker.
And I do love Dusty Baker too, although I think the Phillies are going to shock everybody and win the World Series.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they do.
They're still cheaters. I hope they lose forever, and I'll never forgive them. So sorry.
Do you hate them more than the Yankees? Were you happy the Yankees lost?
I was happy the Yankees lost, but I still I wanted the Yankees to win because then it justifies the Guardians lost more. That's how I feel. That's how I usually operate.
They would have boat raced us too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just were
but we
clearly
could have
the best
pretended like the Yankees. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So Myles Garrett last year, show picture 1, had his graveyard. If you guys will recall his quarterback graveyard, remember this?
Yeah.
Wasn't in favor of it at the time, personally. I don't mind. I get accused sometimes of not enjoying fun by my girlfriend, by my friends, and stuff like that. I don't like this kind of stuff like this. I don't care about color rush uniforms. I don't care about the brownie, the elf, and I don't care about stuff like putting up a graveyard when really, I just don't feel like you've proven enough yet to act like you're murdering these quarterbacks and stuff. So he did make. He hasn't. It's real sad. It says a lot about yourself. It's almost egotistical. But I do like the transition he made this year. This is the movie made, I think. Go to the next one. He has a Stranger Things themed.
I like that.
Like that. All right. So this is imagery from the show Stranger Things. I think there's another one after that. Let's take a look at it. This is Myles Garrett's place. That's like a reference to the show Stranger Things.
Love it.
I watched the first season. Okay, now you can come back here now, Mikey. So, Myles, this is embarrassing. You can't be doing this, man. You can't have a children's show Halloween decorations when you're trying to strike fear into the heart of mankind. It's not a good look. No, I'm not telling you how to live your life. You do whatever you want to do, but I'm just saying, if you really want to strike fear into the hearts of quarterbacks, you're not going to do it by putting that children's show streaming thing that all of the moms are talking about in grade school, all right? No one's shaking in their boots when they see that you have Stranger Things Halloween decorations up. We need a bit of an edge. Do you think this would be the equivalent right now is if in like 1998, James Harrison decorated his house with Saved by the Bell decorations? No one would be afraid of him. We have to present ourselves better to strike fear into the hearts of mankind. Please take down your Stranger Things Halloween decorations for the sake of my sanity. That's my thought.
Did you just compare Saved by the Bell and Stranger Things?
Yes, I did.
Stranger Things is not a kid show.
Yes, it is.
It's scary.
It's not scary. It's kids scary.
No.
You think
Get
Stranger
outta
Things is
here.
scary?
I'm not scared by it, but it's
What's
scary.
funny was, as Mike was saying, that soccer moms watch it.
I was pointing to myself.
Bo was going.
Yeah, right. I know.
It's a great show.
I watched it
It's
one
fine.
season and then
I
lost.
It's all
I lost
right.
interest.
It's not, and
You've
it's
lost
not.
me, Mike.
That's fine. I
I am with Mike.
Sometimes you can't.
There's
come with
something
me.
very 2 and 5 about that.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's a good show, but G-Bush, you're up.
It's a great show.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Man, I've been, my dad called me the other day. He was just like me. He's like, man, I can't believe that, man. These Browns, man. I asked myself, why is it all of a sudden this year? What is it? Why am I taking it so difficultly this year? And I'm starting to realize why it takes its toll on everybody so much. As you get older, I'll turn 41 coming up here in November. As you get older, you start to have more and more years and references under your belt. And as you get older, you start to see and you start to understand just how difficult it is to be this bad for that long. And as you start reminiscing and looking at all of the things that have happened and you're still not relevant, like the crazy things like, yeah, your team left, they turned to the Ravens and then they win the Super Bowl 3 years later. The Jacksonville Jaguars, 1996 under Mark Brunell, they go to the AFC Championship. Heck, the Panthers were good, and they went to the Super Bowl under Jake Delhomme, and at least they got there one more time with your boy Cam Newton. You start to look over all of these expansion teams. Teams have moved and gone from San Diego to L.A., then L.A. back to Oakland, then Oakland back to L.A., then Las Vegas again. And you start to realize, wow, it should be impossible to be this bad. And what happens to you slowly but surely chips away at your soul, chips away at your emotions, it chips away at your fandom. And then one day you wake up and you're just extremely numb. And I think that is starting to set in for me and a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Now we're here, and now the insult to injury is now we're at the place where we're at the tail end of our quote-unquote window. Now we look at our window, and we start to think maybe that guy wasn't good. Well, maybe he wasn't that good. And the guys that we know are good, we don't get the ball, and we ship them other places, and they win. How many guys have Bernie gets a win. Ernest Biner got the ring. How many people leave here? Odell Beckham Jr. left and got the ring. How many people? Ozzie Newsome. He leaves, becomes one of the best general managers of all time. At the end of the day, the Browns always find a way to lose these games. And it's just starting to wear on people. So you guys don't know it, but you are losing people, right? You're losing a whole bunch of generations, and the baby boomers are going to die off. You thought Social Security was a problem? Social Security ain't the only problem you got. Those are the same people that are your diehard fans that can still recite when's the first time they saw Jim Brown and how long they've been a season ticket holder. These new guys will go on to new teams, figure out, play video games, and do something else. Y'all got to figure it out because this population is getting older, and it ain't getting no easier to like the Browns.
Man, a lot there. Give it 16 more years. Because when I hit about 40 and time became a thing to me, and I'm realizing, wow, it's really precious. There is just there's not an infinite, we know that.
You're not going to live forever.
And it's easier when you get older because you understand that they're not worth your time. So you invest the 3 hours a week, but all the stuff that I used to do, reading and researching, and I do it now because it's my job, but it's hard to get through that.
1 second, Jay.
Yeah.
Just 1 second to tie, I think, a couple of threads together from today.
Yeah.
And that was what you just said about losing hope. And what you said earlier about how how these regular season games don't matter that much because we're not going to win anything anyways if you go, or Cincinnati. When Cincinnati would win these regular season games, it was always disappointing because then you get to the playoffs. Right. But it's that time you get to spend when you're winning during the season that matters.
Yeah.
And it was that time that when we went to the playoffs that year, when we were competitive, it's that happiness that you get. And this ties back to your original comment about that lottery ticket when I asked you why it matters when everybody wants to play the Powerball when it's $500 million, but when it's $200 million, everybody's like, what would I do with that kind of money? It doesn't matter. It's the excitement that builds. Your chances aren't any better of winning if that $500 million, but you get that excitement. You get that feeling throughout that time while the money's building and you actually still have hope. The hope is still there that you could possibly reach. You probably won't, but you might reach it. That's what you pay for is the hope, that time that you have hope. And they robbed us of that.
Very quickly, 30 seconds, not even 30 seconds. That is true. You guys are right. It's better to go 5 years from the playoffs and lose than not. However, after a couple of years, you end up being a different type of frustrated, but eventually the journey doesn't feel good.
I'd love to get to that point to experience that kind of disappointment.
But that would happen.
I'd love to get to that point.
Fans in the 90s used to bitch and moan. We're good every year.
Right.
We win 108 games. We're the best team in baseball, but we never win. When they finally did, who did they beat?
Were we feeling good?
Yep.
Were we feeling good about the journey of the Cavs the last year when they lost? A lot of people were not.
I soaked it up.
It was like, let's just get through the regular season.
Yeah, because it was time well spent. It's all about time. Everything we do on this planet is about time. If there's 17 games at 3 hours a game, at the end of the year, did you waste those 51 hours? Or were they 51 hours well spent? For the last 30 years, those were hours that were wasted in my life that I can't get back, and they add up.
Last year for me as a Bengals fan, even though I got the heartbreak of the loss, it was one of my favorite years. I enjoyed it.
And you had 2016 with your Cubs.
Yes, but
we've only had that once.
Yes, but years 4 and 5 of the Bengals losing with Andy Dalton didn't. I wasn't having fun by those first couple of years.
You don't want that plan. Sign me up for that plan.
No, I get it. You're right.
I'll be quick.
It's certainly a better plan.
Watching the Bears game last night, we all think we know what's going to happen in the NFL. This was an easy one for me. I'm like, the Patriots are going to steamroll these guys. They're the Patriots, and it's Matt Eberflus versus Bill Belichick. And that didn't happen. And so then I started juxtaposing what I saw last night to what I saw when the Patriots steamrolled us. and they were the Bears, and we were the Patriots in that situation. And I said, is there that big of a difference between us and the Bears? I mean, the Bears have a very similar record. But in the course of the broadcast, there was a comment made that by Troy Aikman, I believe. I was flipping back and forth between the Manning cast and the main cast. I think Troy Aikman said this, but he said, you got to give credit to Bears coach Matt Eberflus, which might be the first time that's ever been said.
Probably.
But then he said, what he said afterwards is what stuck with me. He said after the 12-7 loss to the Commanders the week before, he made it his mission to sit down and reevaluate the individual goals of all 53 players. Imagine the time that had to take. Those weren't 15-minute conversations, guys. 53 guys he met individually last week. Aside from installing a game plan against the greatest coach ever to do it, he somehow found time last week to put in the game plan that would beat Bill Belichick. And he met with all 53 of his players individually to reassess their own goals and how they're looking at the season. And what it told me was, oh, that's what leadership looks like. That's your leader right there. Maybe it was Justin Fields offensively when they were, making this Patriots defense that made us look pedestrian. They made the Patriots defense look very below average. And in that moment, it was like an epiphany for me. I said, oh, okay. I don't know Matt Eberflus from anything. I know he's got good football IQ. He's had a nice run as a coordinator, and now he's getting a chance as a head coach. But what I said in that moment is, we don't have that guy. The Browns don't have that guy, because if they did, and I don't know what's going on behind the doors in Berea. I don't think he's met individually with all 53 guys this year to try to rally the troops after week 6. I don't think that's happened. So I got to give credit to Matt Eberflus. That, just like Troy Aikman said, somehow he did what's, I think, the hardest thing in football to do. In the middle of a train wreck, not only did he put on the brakes, but he got the train going in the other direction. That's leadership.
For 1 week.
Listen.
Yeah.
It's 1 week that they have hope moving forward.
Yep.
Because if they do what everybody thought they were going to do, go to New England, who was getting its starting quarterback back, and beat the greatest coach of all time at one of the toughest places to do it, their season would have continued to be a train wreck. But for at least 1 week, we don't know what they're going to be moving forward. They slammed on the brakes, they stopped the bleeding, and they moved the train in the other direction. I'm waiting for someone to do that with the Browns. Kevin Stefanski, we're looking at you.
Mikey, was I the only one that had the Bears with the points?
No.
I'll look at it.
I did.
100% positive.
I took them.
I did too.
I thought the
Damn it, I
Patriots
need
would
to
win.
gain some
I
ground.
thought the Patriots would win outright,
Not me.
but I thought it would be a touchdown. And the spread was 9.
It was big.
And Matt Eberflus.
And do we have a quarterback controversy in New England?
Got it going in the other direction. We're out of time. Back tomorrow. We want to tease something up for tomorrow's show. What's big?
Got Mayor Bibb in studio. We
That's
got
right.
Ben Baby, ESPN beat reporter for the Bengals. Do a little preview of that game, and then Dave Richard with some fantasy advice. So a lot of stuff coming. Big show.
Mayor Bibb is talking about putting actual parking meters, like without change, downtown.
Oh, about time.
So
I love
thank
it.
him. I won't be here.
App-driven ones, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you don't have to have freaking quarters.
So I won't be here for that. But
By
thank
the
him.
way, that would get Cleveland into the 2000s.
Yeah, welcome to the 90s.
That is, I don't know how it's taken this long to get there.
I also have a show at the Music Box at 7 p.m. tomorrow. It's like a Cleveland photo show. So it's a Music Box Supper Club.
go.
If you feel like it, come down.
Very
7
good.
Got to promote.
In the meantime, we're on a 22-hour break. Enjoy it's beautiful weather out there. It's a great looking day on this Tuesday. We're back tomorrow for the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We'll see you then. Have a great week.